pull up my Google Docs.
No audio for the room, just for the stream. Really? Check. Good for the stream? Okay, the microphones are kind of funny because, you're like, oh, this person will get louder when they speak into it. But you're wrong. The microphones are mainly for the streaming purposes we have going on back there. So I'm just going to have to be loud, and so are y'all, which is no problem for me. I know it's no problem for you. So, hello. Yeah. Well, we'll get there. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Painter and the Poet Studio. My name is Delia. I am your host of the evening. If you did not already grab one, we've got the questions that we'll be asking our panelists today. I encourage you to grab one to take some notes or just be able to follow along in the conversation. There's some pens up here. There's some name tags for Primo networking purposes. And there's our lovely panel up there as well today. We've got Shawn Pugh. He's a musician, and he also books for Bourbon Street, the solos and the duos. Jenni, forgive me, your last name, can you say it for me? Okay, it's easier than I think it is. Jenni's the owner and booker of the Seawitch, one of my favorite places to play, and just a very well-represented and cool place that a lot of musicians have favorable things to say. So I wanted to get our venue owners in here as well, folks that book for venues, to get their opinion as well. And we have Stuart Currin also here. Stuart, I met you when I first moved to town, I think, at Old Fermental, and you were already, like, the guy. So you've been playing for a long time, and in fact, we're going to go through and sort of introduce our panel here, let them introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Stu. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been playing in town, and what it is you do here.
I guess started in around 98 doing solo gigs here and there, back in the late 1900s, we should say. And yeah, just doing solo gigs around town, and started playing drums. And I had friends, Charlie and Connie Parker were in Roadhouse Blues Band, and they let me sit in with them at the Ice House, and then I got the bug. And yeah, Ice House, that's going now. It's an awesome place, run by Jim Bath. But yeah, yeah, since then I've been with Boba Funk probably the longest. We're going on 16 years, which is longer than a lot of my friends' marriages have lasted.
That's a long time to keep a band together. Let's just be clear.
Yep, and like our bass player moved to Charlotte and then would still come back to town almost every weekend during the summer. And then we've got Dirty White Rags I've been with about 10 years. Monkey Functions going on 8. We started as Dynamic Thermatones. Newest bands are Volkswagen. And as you can tell, the bands I name, I like to put something of the genre that we're playing in the band name so the owners know what they're going to be getting, or someone goes online, they're like, oh, Boba Funk. Okay, I like funk. And that's like classic funk, soul, Motown, reggae. And so Volkswagen's a newer one with Kyle Lindley, Jason Miller. And for extra gigs, I've been doing the Stew Crew, which if someone calls me to cover a last-minute gig, I throw together whoever. I don't know if I'll be playing guitar, playing drums, until we get the band together. And then, you know, Frank Grant calls me every now and then. Wes Sayer, we've ended up on the same stage with Shawn.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's always someone different that I'm playing with those bands. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Jenni, how long have you owned the Seawitch, and how long have you been booking music?
I'm going on 10 years this year, which is nuts. I've been booking it for 11 there. Originally, we had just all beach music and crazy price bands, and we've really tried to make it a music spot and not just focus on food and as a restaurant, but also be an entertainment venue too. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Shawn. I've been playing music since like 2008. I'm from Maryland originally, so I was in original projects and a couple cover bands. I moved down here in 2016 and was discovered by Amanda in the back first. I started playing in cover bands here around 2016, 2017. COVID hit and there were no bands, so I started playing solo around 2019. And then I got in good with Bourbon Street, hosting their open mic and playing solo there once in a while. And Danny sort of asked me to start booking solo acts there. So around 2022, 2023, I started booking their solo and duo acts there. So, yeah. It's my experience.
Thank y'all. As you can see, we have a nice, diverse panel. Stu, one of the reasons that I asked you to panel today was, did you guys hear the list of bands that Stu sort of rattled off just now? And a lot of them are projects that he's sort of the main booker for. Is that correct? I don't want to say that you're not. Okay. And has started. So I think that that's a wise thing to do, and we'll kind of come back to that, especially if you play multiple instruments and maybe you can do solo work as well as maybe piece play, sub in for people. We're going to talk about that, but I always admire Stu's list of projects that he has going on and ability to kind of book them and fit them where they need to be. Also, great point about putting something about the genre in the name, because our last workshop was about being over branding and how to define yourself, how to sort of define your genre of music. So do it right in the band name and everybody knows exactly what they're getting. Now, when we talk about booking, one thing that I have noticed is that the lament of the digital world. We live in a place where there's a lot of communication all the time and it's expected very quickly and it's all over the place. I am checking my Facebook, my Instagram, my emails, my text, and who knows what other communication methods to get booked and to follow up on my gigs. So my question for the panel first is, where do you do most of your booking communication? Because honestly, I do most of mine on Facebook. And when people say like, oh, I hate Facebook, I'm like, I feel you. But I'll tell you, that is where I'm in communication with most venues. That's where I start by reaching out to venues. Most of the time is through their Facebook page. Stu, we'll start with you and go down the line. What do you think that you find yourself doing the most in terms of communication?
So it used to be phone, text messages, phone numbers. 2011, as my memories always remind me, is when I finally broke down and got a Facebook page mainly for music. And that is definitely where most of my communication with people I've never played for or have never heard me, they reach out through Facebook. Sometimes it's through a band page. More often it's through my personal. And a lot of times it's while I'm playing somewhere, like Bourbon Street. I got in there because I was hired to do an event for Cucaloris, and a lawyer office hired us for their event. And before we were done playing, like, all the employees are coming up giving us cards. And but yeah, definitely Facebook is the most. And I'm almost never on Instagram. It's I'm old. It's confusing, you know. It's, sometimes it gives me the option to share an event through both of them. If it doesn't, but luckily we have younger people in other bands that are more tech savvy. Yeah.
Jenni, what do you find yourself responding to when you're responding to Seawitch bookings?
Emails I'm terrible at. I probably get 60 a week, and it's just too much, especially because I don't just, like, band booking is not the only thing I do. I have 50 hours dedicated to other stuff too. It's really hard to go through emails. Facebook, a lot. That is what it is. Younger ones have been doing more on Instagram. I'm older and don't check my messages as much on those, but I've been trying to do that more. And then I do like just converting to text still, because it's easiest for me to just pull it up, like anything with rate of pay, the dates, like to double check. I like either Facebook or text.
Yeah. Shawn, both as you reaching out as a musician and when you're booking for Bourbon Street, how are people getting in touch with you? How are you getting in touch with other people?
Facebook Messenger,
Yeah.
text, in person at my own open mic or at Mad Cat's open mic, and then if you're getting a call from me, it's an emergency. Like either I need coverage, or you were supposed to be at the venue an hour ago. Where are you? I prefer Facebook Messenger and text. One, because it's very easy to see the line of communication. I've had people say, well, we agreed to this, and I can screenshot. No, actually, we didn't. So I prefer that. It's very literal and honest. And then at the open mic, if I see you playing and I like what you're doing, I can be there and say, hey, do you have 3 hours of material? You want $150 and $25 for a bar tab for playing for 3 hours? Cool, let's talk.
Thank y'all. I just want to sort of like review and reiterate what was said. Facebook a lot, because I know that some people are kind of iffy on Facebook, and I agree with you. Trust me.
Same.
It can be a terrible, toxic wasteland, but it can also be the main way that most businesses I think today are encouraged to keep some sort of social media presence, and you sort of get graded. Like my business page, by the way, someone said sometimes it's band pages, right, Stu? Except if you do start a band page separate from your page, make sure you check your messages, because they're separate and they come in separately. And then suddenly you're like, oh my God, oops. I have some communications in here that I haven't gotten to in a while. So do check that out. But even if you're not a big fan of Facebook, that can be a great way. One of the main ways that I book is if I see my friends booking someplace I haven't played before, I go click on the Facebook page of that thing. Oh, when do they do music? Cool. And I reach out. We're going to kind of talk about that, the little, like a script of how to approach booking in just a minute. But Facebook is way up there. I do suggest, and we'll talk about this a little bit more too, about a contact list, keeping track of how you are communicating with each venue. If it's Facebook, if it's text, if it's Instagram. Because I have found myself scrolling through my phone and trying to figure out, I know we had this conversation. Where is it? Is it in my text? Is it in email? Oh, there it is. It was Instagram. I never checked that. So do try to keep track of what you're doing. And even if you're not a big Facebook person, it might be worth it just in terms of being able to reach out. Now, when you do reach out, what are you saying? That's a good question. I like to think that venue owners like it short and sweet. Jenni, Shawn, can you speak to that? If you're booking, what do you want to hear from people when they're reaching out to you?
Just be polite.
That's such a great
people.
point.
No, I mean honestly, like Amanda and you both play at our venue. You guys know that I drop the ball and I'm lazy sometimes in booking. And whenever somebody's super aggressive, though, like if you haven't gotten back to them, like that is the biggest turn off for me. Where if you're polite each time, like, hey, like I know you're busy, but just saying it nicely goes such a long way.
I just want to say something about that. Thank you, because before you said, I don't only do the booking. I have 500 things going on. I have 50 hours worth of other stuff. I think that's so important for us as musicians to remember, because I hear a lot of people sort of like, we take it personally. We haven't heard from a venue owner.
Yeah.
Why don't they like me? And it's probably not about you at all. They probably have 50,000 other things going on and they've just forgotten, and you just have to kind of harass them a little tiny bit, politely harass them, just as a reminder, oh, that's right, I have to do the booking for this next quarter. Let me get on top of that. I had 5 other things going on at the same time and I forgot. So don't take it too personally if you don't hear from venue owners or folks. Don't get aggressive with them and get weird with your tone, because the probability is it has nothing to do with you. Booking is a frustrating process sort of for everybody around. So just stay polite, I think, is such great advice. Thank you, Jenny.
I used to take it personally, just like as booking myself. It's weird being at this crossroads, because in booking myself, I used to take it very personally. And then I started booking for Bourbon Street, and I had people being like, why haven't you responded to my text? I texted you 20 minutes ago. And I'm like, my brother in Christ, I'm working. Like, I'm actively gigging right now, leave me alone.
There's also so much mapping out that goes into it. I get a mental block sometimes in the summer for it. But for example, for us on the weekends, we have primary bands that are out of town. If one band that makes you money as a venue that you want to have on is taking forever to get back on you, you are stalled till they get back to you if you really want them there. And that slows everything down. And then after you have mapped out almost everything, like some bands that we have book weddings and have to shuffle around, it is such a shuffle thing and takes so much time that a lot of time that is what it is as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, even I only do the solos and duos. I don't even book bands at Bourbon Street. Danny wants to maintain control of that, because, as he says, he has to keep the party going. That's his benchmark for all booking at Bourbon Street.
We asked Danny from Bourbon Street, who books the bands there, if he had any advice he'd like to pass on, in lieu of him being able to attend and sending Shawn in his stead. And he said, well, we have to keep the party going. And that's Danny's view on everything when it comes to bands. So I think that's just good life advice. Like the Marie Kondo thing, does it give you joy? No.
Does it keep the party going?
Just ask yourself. As you traverse life. So having said that, with everybody being extremely busy, short and sweet, and when I send a follow-up email, those of you who are at our last workshop probably saw that I sent a little follow-up email after this, and it has some resources. It has a review of the things we talked about and maybe links to some articles or things like that. And what this workshop is going to have is some resources for you to use. And one of them is just going to be a script. I have a little template email in Google. Hi, my name is Delia Stanley. I'm a local musician. I play this type of music, rock and pop. And again, some of this goes back to the workshop that we did last week, sort of how do you define yourself? What kind of music genre are you? What do you want to relay to people that it is that you do? I do live looping, solo, rock and pop music. I also play with the duo and band. I have a few accolades of cool things I've done around town that I like to sprinkle in there. I was in Azalea Festival at Greenfield Lake. Ooh, fancy. I did the WHQR thing. I was on the radio. Just real quick. And, hope to hear from you soon. Here's how to contact me. Here's my website. Hope to hear from you soon. Always very polite to end it so that you're inviting these venue owners. So we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to send sort of a customizable script that you can use. And I highly recommend you it's almost like what they used to talk about, an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Something super quick, to the point. My name is X. I play Y. You can find me at Z. Hope to hear from you soon.
Less than 7 sentences is great. I mean, when I was hardcore into booking myself solo, it was, hi, my name is Shawn Pugh. I'm super interested in playing XYZ venue. I play everything from Black Sabbath to Britney Spears. Some a little bit different, some the exact same way. If I'd love to play at your venue, appreciate you considering me. Thanks. And that's it. And if you don't have a clear idea on that, again with the branding thing, get a clear idea of what you're doing. That's super important. It's hard to be like, well, what do you do? Well, I don't want to hire. So send me a set list. Send me a video. I have a little video that I send along with my solo stuff. It's a super cut of 5 songs that I play. That's a pretty broad spectrum, including the Black Sabbath and the Britney Spears. And it's 20 seconds each. So no more than a couple minutes of me playing songs so that people can see what they're getting. I think that's super important so that you can get a literal representation of what you're going to be getting show-wise.
Thanks for mentioning that, because we are going to bring that up next. Usually the type of little script that I'm talking about, this is what I send to people on Facebook,
Yeah.
Instagram, the small, short one. And then usually that's, oh, yeah, we'll book you. Yeah. Or do you have any video? Do you have this? Do you have that? Stuart, someone who is booking for multiple bands, do you have a script you follow? Do you have different things that you say for different bands? Obviously, you want to represent what each one does.
So I've not had to reach out to a venue in a long time. Well, just, just
This is
'cause
why you're on the panel. That's right, Stu. The other day, Stu told me, well, I haven't had to reach out to a venue in a long time. I was like, well, that's
just
the
'cause-
level everybody wants to get
Like,
to.
we'll start playing, and there's so many people in all of the bands. Like, if it's a new place, chances are someone asks somebody in the band, and then they'll just send it to me for coordinating, because I'm the one that has a rougher schedule, and it's easier for me to know my open dates. And hey, other 4 members, send me your availability. I'm like, these are the dates I can do. Do they work for y'all? And but yeah, as far as when I'm talking to a venue, back in the day, I would literally go and talk to the people, and whoever, I would ask who's in charge of booking, sit down, have a conversation with them, and but lately, yeah, I like keeping videos at hand. I'll try to save them, and then with each band, I'll copy and paste as your friend. I will copy, describe it once. I think this is everything, and then I'll change. I need to update it because right now it says Boba Funk's been together 14 years. And so I need to update those. But yeah, I try to keep that short and sweet, like Shawn was saying. It's a little more than 7 sentences, but I try to get across that we aim for 200 per person, depending on who's in the band. And I never tell them, I never claim that I bring a crowd. I hate that question. Oh, what kind of crowd do you bring? What crowd can you guarantee? And realistically, all of my friends are musicians.
Right.
And the friends that aren't are spread out through all of our musician friends. So for me to say I will personally get 20 people to show up, I never say that. I'll try to book places that have a built-in crowd, and I'm the entertainment. Which I know I got a little off subject there.
No, that's okay. That's a good point.
Venues should never make musicians feel like if they have a slow night, it's a reflection on them either. Like, I hate ones that do that too. Like, it's
Right.
not, there's so many other factors. Like, yes, it is great if you have a cult following of something or can bring people out, but definitely, having a guarantee with that, I think makes no sense. So, yeah, I completely agree with you on that.
I do not understand that either. That's something that at Bourbon Street and with the bands and also solo, we don't expect you to bring a crowd. It's a weird thing, and that's why the Seawitch is one of the favorite places in town.
Sometimes it's problematic sometimes at Bourbon Street. I'll tell all my friends to come out, and they get there, and it's maxed out, and they're like,
Yeah.
what the hell, man? You didn't put me on the list? I'm
Right.
like, there is no list.
Yeah.
What list?
Yeah.
These are just people. I don't know them.
I think,
I had a question.
yeah,
If that's cool.
yeah, please.
Please.
Going back to what you said.
What I do?
Video clips. When we're sending video clips,
Yeah.
are we looking for video clips? Are we looking for audio clips? And what are we looking for in the clips?
I mean,
To promote ourselves.
a representation of what you do, not super long. I'm not trying to sit there and watch a documentary on what you do. I'm trying to get a brief.
Although we like that.
Oh, I would love
We
that.
love that.
Don't get me wrong. That's at home. That's at home watching material. When I'm working, I'm looking for under 2 minutes. Again, akin to an elevator pitch, but video audio wise. Audio can be good, but I also want to know if you're delivering a heartfelt performance, if you're giving energy and stuff like that. And I think that would be what anyone who's booking would want to know is if you have an energetic performance as well as a good performance, because you can sonically sound amazing and be a potato.
Hey.
It's not hard. I'm not saying it's not hard, but good musicians are good musicians, but not always good entertainers. So being a good entertainer and being a good musician is the crossroads that most venues are looking for.
Are you keeping the party going?
Are you keeping the party going?
Jenni, do you also look for video clips for, especially for maybe new folks that are reaching out to you?
I don't have time if somebody sends me an email or a thing like, go to my page, then check out this video, like give a direct link to, so it is just
Yeah.
one click whenever somebody's feeling like they're gonna dig through stuff. And then I've turned down a lot that I probably shouldn't have, just because it was just terrible audio quality. And you can take good on your, especially with bands too, if you're in bands and not just, even if you're a solo, if you do like just even acoustic and I can hear it or kind of see it, that helps me a lot. A lot of people film at venues where just there's too much crowd noise, like you can't hear it, and I passed up on a lot that I know were probably good, but I couldn't like vouch for it.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I think that, you know, and Stu, you said you've been doing this since '98, so you remember the days of like an actual little folder perhaps that you would like bring to the venue and be like, hi, I'm this person, or you would give out something like that. And then it became popular to do electronic press kits,
I would
right? And people
literally
still
bring a CD and a
Yeah.
CD player.
Right.
And,
the
this is
headphones,
what
no, listen to it right now, I'll wait.
This is why Stu gets called for gigs.
Sometimes you do, you gotta go the extra mile sometimes. But, you know, it was very popular to say electronic press kit for a long time, and that's something that's still kind of thrown at musicians. You've gotta get your electronic press kit. And I think the honest truth is, we've distilled down the electronic press kit to just the video.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, just send that video straight to folks. If you don't have a great video to send, or I think that's why, Shawn, what you did, kind of mix and match a couple of clips from a couple of different things so that they can see your range. Consider a few ideas of how to get good video. Maybe in your house works for you. Maybe at an open mic. Shawn and I try to take video for folks at Mad Cats, where you can kind of see the nice stage. There's really good sound system there. Consider this wonderful space all around us here at the Painter and the Poet. Milk is in the back there. We are talking membership and stuff like that, so that's something we can talk about at the end if you're interested. But members have access to this space, and I'm certainly thinking about bringing a camera and my phone in here and setting up on stage and getting some good video for myself. Because even if I'm like, I was on WHQR, people are like, you got a video of you playing? And I'm like, still have to do this?
radio.
But it was on the radio. They're like, we don't care about that. So get those videos for sure. And consider taking them at open mics. Consider having a friend take that at a quiet time. If you're at a gig, it's a little quiet. The crowd's not quite what you want. That's
where-
okay. Opportunity time to
That's
go
where my
ahead.
video was filmed.
Yeah.
I was playing a really slow show at Slancho, what's now the Celtic Monkey.
Yes.
In the off season one time, and I was like, you know what, dude, let's go. And I recorded like an hour of my set and just took the best 2 minutes that I could find.
I think that's fair. Use those slow gigs as a little opportunity to get something you want out of it.
So I like that for audio.
Yeah.
And so Sue Crop is great. I'm sure people.
Oh, yeah, Sue.
So she'll show up, and so I'll save what she has, and I send that for good quality audio. And someone got decent video of us at Bourbon Street, and they did like the panoramic so you could see the crowd.
Yeah.
So, and the quality's not as good, but I like to send that as well so they can see like we have entertained a whole crowd. And sometimes we've done Early Gardens, so we'll try to get the background of like the sold out show with the people, even if it's just a picture. So when they're, they'll know that we can put on a show for 3,000, but if whether it's 3 people or 3,000, you still try to put on the best show that you can for no matter what size the crowd is. So, but not all venue owners are as open-minded, and if they see, I would be nervous because I'm like, man, if they see just me and I'm at an empty venue, oh, you don't want to hire somebody that can't fill a room. Some people are looking that way. So I would try to send a clip of one that's good quality audio, and then one where you can see visually what the show is like.
Right. That's a great point. Or is there anything else, especially Jenni and Shawn, that you're looking for when you're hearing from musicians outside of video? Do you want a website? Do you care about their social media presence and how many Facebook followers they have? Maybe some folks do. Is that something that matters to y'all?
Not for me particularly. I want to know if you are entertaining, if you have a good set list, if you would. So the times that I book for are basically 1 to 4 on Saturdays and 6:30 to 9:30 on Sundays. So this is not your like party time necessarily. I'm gonna keep the party going, but it's not like full band like party time. People are eating food at these times. Families are eating food at these times. So like I'm looking for a good entertainer who has a good set list. And there's been times where I've booked people where I've gotten messages the next day from Danny being like, "Hey, who was that Tom guy?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I just discovered him from. He came to me from the Mad Cats mic, and he came through Bourbon Street one time, and he was filling in for somebody. You hire him every month. Like those are the kinds of messages that I'll get, and so I'm beholden now to hire this person every month from the venue owner, but like that's all I'm really looking for is if you sound good, if you're entertaining, and honestly, if you're good to the staff. Because if I hear the moment that I hear that you've been bad to any of the staff at Bourbon Street, I'm not hiring you. That's like priority number one because they have to deal with your nonsense all night. So no.
This is shitty, but we like booking is a business, and it is like, what is going to make me money? What am I going to have the most return on for a restaurant? It is. I know we had to talk about it on Facebook too. Like I have to know that you're going to do cover music at Seawitch a lot because I have tourists that are my general clientele, and they need to sing along to songs. Like, it's not what I like. I'm sick of all this stuff all the time, but it doesn't matter because it's a different crowd of people each week. Like, I could honestly book the same person if they were getting a retainer every week, like in the summer, and it'd be a totally different crowd, and it would still be okay.
Jenny, how many times have you heard Brown Eyed Girl?
Too many. At least Wagon Wheel has finally like kicked the dust.
That's the
But
new
yeah.
Freebird.
Yes,
Wagon Wheel's the new
yes.
Freebird.
And
I've always
some-
been a fan of sucking them in with a cover and then try to blow them away with an original.
And I'm fine if those get snuck in, and they do, but generally, like if somebody's writing or on anything like original songwriter, I normally just stay away from those because I know that's not what works for my venue.
Yeah.
So definitely know your venue, like if you were playing here or whatever, like you can do, like whatever you want to, be a lot more open in, I mean, even downtown too, but especially the beaches are so touristy, like that is what we are looking for.
Can you play something we can dance to?
Yes,
Right.
and they want to sing
We just
to it
played
too.
Superstition.
You know any Morgan Wallen? You know any Zach Brown Band?
I think that's such a great point, Jenny, about knowing what kind of venue you want to play with, and it's not something that's really on the list, but I do want to take a moment to talk about that. Because when I'm thinking about booking and when I'm thinking about these kind of workshops, I'm sort of taking it for granted of like the stuff that I do. I think most of us, our bread and butter is covers at bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to become a full-time musician that you can pay your mortgage, rent, bills on music in this town or surrounding areas, you are playing some covers at some bars sometimes. That doesn't mean that you're never playing your original music out, and there are a lot of places that are carving out space for that. This is one of those places. There are singer-songwriter showcases on the third Thursdays here. There's a heavy focus on originals. Obviously, Voice in the Pen is co-doing these workshops. There's TK back there. Voice in the Pen is carving out space for original music. Those showcases are mostly originals. Live at Ted's is another venue, a listening room downtown. Then when they have folks there and when people are reaching out to them, it's going to be original stuff, singer-songwriter stuff. So there are spaces for that. We had on our last panel last time, Brian from Escape Velocity. They are playing some very specific kind of niche music. They're playing what they called, what did they say?
Aggressive instrumental.
Aggressive instrumental. So that might be a little niche for some. You really have to find your venues that are going to want to take that. So when we are talking about booking, you might have different projects for different things. Stu has some different projects. Amanda, I know you have a couple different projects for different things. No, I don't know anything about it. Sometimes I also do that. When Delia and Friends plays, we do a lot more original stuff. Mm-hmm. And when Delia plays, I do a lot more covers when you see me flying solo at a bar on my looper. So it's important to know what kind of venue you're looking for and what you want out of it. Do you want to sling around covers? Because it's fun. It's a nice time. You go to a bar, you have some fun, you get a drink, you play some covers, people are singing along with you and dancing, and you have a good time of it. But if you're more of a singer-songwriter and you want to get your originals out there, start to kind of get to know the places that are focused on that. And you can definitely sneak some original tunes in there.
Learn how to pepper them in, because when Delia and Friends plays, it's like maybe 15% originals, 85% covers. But we have really mastered the art of peppering them in throughout the set. And it never feels inappropriate. The crowd usually loves it. I mean, they're not singing along per se, because there's original music, but they're definitely vibing and having a good time when it happens. So there's definitely an art form to getting your original music in, and as well as Sky Parlor. When you guys play, you guys have original music, and that I have not yet learned. But I know I played 2 yesterday. But you guys will also pepper them into your set list, and it works. It sounds good.
I'm a fan of medleys too. Like if one of your originals sounds similar to a cover, like Dirty White Rags, we play The Letter, and we go straight from that into an original. Mm-hmm. And but yeah, and then people are like, "Well, I never heard that part of The Letter," and it's like, "Oh, that part
That's
is
because it was
our song." Yeah.
Yeah, definitely taking a look at what venues you want. And that kind of speaks to, again, what we did during the last workshop, which was a lot more about sort of defining ourselves, defining what type of music we play, and making those decisions. What do I want out of my music career, and what venues are sort of there to focus on that? While we're on the note of venues, I do want to mention that many of us met at open mics and run open mics, and that was one of the major ways that I got into the music scene, that I got booked at places. So if you are not yet going to do open mic stuff and you're looking to get booked, there's lots of open mics in town all the time. Look at the list. Definitely the place that I was running an open mic was the first place that I got booked. And many open mics are booking from that open mic. Whether or not they advertise that, kind of like what you were saying, the bartenders have their ears out. Mm-hmm. I think the first time I ever played at Seawitch was during a Sam Jam. Not quite an open mic, but
I have found so many people that are on our rotation with that, and I have a toddler, so I don't have a life and go listen to live music anymore. But Frank Grant, for example, half of our bartenders live downtown. They heard him and they really liked it. It'll still get back to me if I trust other musicians' judgments. If Jared Klein came to me and said hey, this person's absolutely awesome, you need to look at them, I will absolutely take that if I know it's somebody credible.
Yeah.
Who you know is often still very relevant.
Absolutely.
When it comes to anything.
Yeah.
Well, and you were saying something, what was the quote that you threw out there a couple days ago? If you want to be on the scene, be on the scene, or something.
I forget which, there was an interview with a drummer for a jazz, one of the jazz greats, and he had this whole list of different things that this guy had said in order to be a successful musician. And one of the things is, if you want to be on the scene, be on the scene. You cannot expect people to know who you are if you aren't around. And I say that to people all the time. People are like, "Oh, I haven't gotten it." There was a thing online on Talking Tunes where somebody was complaining, "I can't get a gig anywhere, blah, 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 blah. Why can't I do this?" And it's like, I don't know who you are. Yeah. So how is anybody supposed to book you if no one knows who you are? You have to be around.
And that can be a difficult one. I also have a kiddo, and maybe some of us also have kiddos at home, or we have other jobs, day jobs, we have other things going on, and it's hard to make it out to everything, and you can have a little FOMO around it, but trying to get out to a couple of even just select things that you want to be able to network and meet some people, or there's a venue that you really want to get in and they haven't been very responsive. Going there and having a beer and saying hello to the staff is still never out of style, and sometimes it gets the job done. If that venue has an open mic and you go there and perform, letting the staff hear you and just see you, and the folks that are established musicians, most of the time, folks running the open mic have some sway, if not booking, like Shawn does, for the venue. So at Mad Cats, we don't book for Mad Cats, but if we say, "Hey, Jackson, we loved this band that came in the other day, you're gonna wanna hear this," just like you're saying. He's like, "I trust that, and I'll give them a call."
It's worth being tired the next day. It really is.
Yeah.
It's one time.
with
Do it.
Shawn booking for Bourbon now, it's a nice thing to be able to have that open mic and sort of scout your own booking situation.
Absolutely.
And be like, I like you, I like you, I like you. So I definitely encourage you to get on the scene, get out there to open mics and places like that, and just kind of network, get to know people, and get heard. Now, on that note, we're going into what types of tips and tricks help musicians get communicated with faster, book more regularly, and I sort of want to come back to and highlight what Shawn said about the staff.
Oh.
In my opinion, that is the number one thing that you want to do. When you go to a venue, especially if it's your first time, go introduce yourself. I know sometimes we can have like a low social battery because we're putting it all out there on the stage, and then you're like, oh my God, and you kind of save it up for that. But please, introduce yourself to the staff. They're people, we're people. Be nice to them. Always check to make sure, in case you have a bar tab at the end of the night. I always tip my bartender, regardless of whether or not I have a tab or not. The bartenders are basically the first line of folks. They're gonna hear you maybe over and over and over again. So you wanna be polite to them. You want them to like you. Be nice to your server staff. Like Shawn said, the minute that somebody's like, oh, and this guy left and didn't even ask if he had a tab, or this person was rude to me because of whatever, that's probably the last time that you're gonna be playing there.
That's actually my entire response to this. It's my biggest tip or trick is literally be nice to patrons, to staff, know the owner's name. That it seems like duh, but the amount of times that people will be like, so who owns this place? And it's like, you have been booked here now several times, and I've told you that at least twice.
I've asked for Daniel at Bourbon Street, and they're like, I don't know who that is.
Then you're like Danny, and they're like, oh.
Yeah. I was like,
But the first line is literally be nice. I say that not just as the person who books for a place, but also as a musician. I have a reputation in town for being nice, for being dependable, for being reliable, and for like being good. Just be available and kind, and that takes you so far. I like show up to the gig prepared. Don't show up to the gig inebriated. That seems like, duh, but again, it's not. Ask me, how do I know? It seems like basic stuff, but being nice is a great way to get called in for fill-in gigs. Fill-in gigs lead to regular gigs. I filled in on bass for just yesterday, and then I joined just yesterday. I joined Delia and Friends because I tried out for Delia and Friends because they wanted a bassist for the Greenfield Lake Amphitheater show, and now I'm in the band and I'm in a duo with Delia. Like, be dependable and reliable, and communicate well, and be nice. It seems like really simple stuff. And keep the party going.
Jenni, do you want to speak to what helps people get booked with you? Being nice, probably.
New people, it really is word of mouth, is how I book new one. And kind of at Seawitch, it's like the mafia almost. Like, once you're in, you're in. I will never take somebody out of a rotation unless they royally screw up, at all. And that's why sometimes there's not a lot of space for new ones. We opened an additional day, so that helped open a door. But once you're in, you stay in normally unless you want to get out. And I have a really good relationship with most all the musicians. Yeah, and they are polite too, the ones that are in there. Yeah.
Stuart, have you found any tips and tricks for what makes venues respond to you well, respond faster, maybe repeat booking?
Always being polite, and communication is huge. But also, whether I have a tab or not, I always tip the bartenders. If I'm in a band that takes breaks, I make sure to ask the bartender if they're able to hear, because I can't stand when we're playing and I see the bartender, what? And stage volume, I think, is very important. I don't want to, especially as a vocalist, drumming and singing, if I'm getting blasted by a guitar, it makes it, I can still sing, but I can't get into it. It's very important to have a lower stage volume, especially if you're lucky enough to have a sound man. and let them do that job.
You have told me before, hey, is this so? I got a complaint about so and so being loud. Is he too loud? And I've been like, yeah. And you turned around and me like,
Right.
it was great.
But yeah, just making sure that the venue's happy, showing up.
It also goes a long way too if you do a lot of the legwork for promotions too. Amanda's great at it, but like she'll make a Facebook event, she'll tag all the right stuff, like do all of that where I normally would have to do it, and that is awesome just to accept a co-host request, and then and then share it to that. And if they we at Seawitch make a lot of posters for people, just like for social media promotion. It's also really nice if you just go ahead and like give something we can slap a logo on and the time and date and stuff. That helps a lot too.
Yeah. But it is frustrating. Like I have to ask certain venues. I'm like, hey, this, and I'll actually pay the sponsored ad, and I have to reach out to the venue. Do you mind accepting the co-host to this event?
will say that since Facebook became Meta, I do not see the co-host stuff. I have to go to my personal page, not the business one, and can see it that way. Or I have to go on a desktop, and a lot of people don't do that. It's really messed up though, and it hasn't fixed since it's been a
Phones
bug.
have sort of become the most commonplace way to do a lot of this stuff. Our phones really have sort of become the main tool for communication when it comes to that kind of stuff.
I agree, and I think that you're right about Facebook. They make a couple of tweaks here and there, and you're like, well, the thing I knew how to do, I no longer know how to do.
Yeah.
So I will give my 2 cents that, as Jenni mentioned, a lot of venue owners are just busy. And I recognize that. I work with a lot of venues where it is the owner or the manager who is also doing the booking. So they're real busy. I call it polite harassment. Like Jenni knows, I'm like, hey again, it's me. Just wondering if you got that calendar out. Just a reminder. And then usually you're like, yep, I'm getting to it, or I'm really busy this week and I'll get back to you when you can. I always stay polite about it. And I just recognize that they're busy and they have probably forgotten about it, or they just haven't gotten to the booking yet. 9 times out of 10 when I haven't heard from a venue, especially that I usually hear from, they're just behind on booking because 5 million other things have come up. Part of this panel was called Booking, but also Developing Business Relationships. So I want to touch on that real quick while we're sort of on that subject, because Jenni, you just said I've got good relationships with the musicians that come in, and once you're in, you're in. Shawn is kind of the same way at Bourbon Street, especially because a lot of the folks that he's booking are folks that come to that open mic a lot, and folks that he knows, and he knows that he can trust. So this becomes about not just, okay, I've got the booking, but developing these relationships over a long term. It's taken years for me to get my schedule to look like it does now, which is to say pretty darn busy. And it's taken a lot of relationship building, reaching out, always staying polite, going in to patronize those businesses when I'm not playing. It doesn't always happen very frequently, but being a customer as well as somebody who goes in there, sending good musicians in my set if I need to do that. Once you are able to kind of develop relationships with certain venues, that goes such a long way. I mean, listen to what Stu said. He's like, I don't even have to really reach out anymore, because there's venues that have known Stuart for however long. You've been with some of your bands, like you said, longer than marriages last, and they already know we're going to want you for this many times next year. And I have found this year that I'm shifting into that after a couple of years of developing business relationships. Now I've got venues who are like, you know what? Take the first Wednesday of the month for all of next year. And I'm encouraging some of my other venues that I know I work with, and they know me by now, to say, hey, how about the third Thursday of the month for the first quarter or throughout the year? Yeah. That way it's just easier on everyone.
Yeah,
but it takes
load off their mind. They know you're going to be there.
Third Thursday, Celia's there. I already know that, right?
Yeah.
And we're booked out through the year. You never have to touch the calendar again or really hear from me unless I have to, unless for some reason somebody has to cancel.
Yeah.
I love that. It doesn't happen right away. This takes years to develop. And I just want to sort of reiterate that booking is hard, and it's probably the hardest part. And I see even Joel shaking, even those of us who've been doing it for a while, it's still kind of a pain in the butt. And it's still one of those things that, and I'm sure for venue owners, when you're like, okay, I gotta sit in front of my calendar now, and you're trying to shuffle and arrange all the pieces, this is a difficult process. So don't feel badly. If you're like, oh my God, I haven't heard from these people yet. Oh my God, I'm not quite there yet. That's a normal feeling.
Mm-hmm.
This is hard for everybody, even the most like veteran musicians in town that I know laments the booking process just a little bit because it can be hard, you can take it personally, and it can be difficult. Did you have something to share, Shawn?
I mean, I'm just.
Oh,
I've
you
had
have your
that.
hand
I've
up.
had that exact. I'm just fidgeting over here. That's the ADHD. No, but I have. I mean, friends who are in bands that I know are busy, who are still, like you said, lamenting the booking process because it's hard. Like, I mean, Evan's in the back, or I'll call you out right now. We were just talking outside of Bourbon Street the other day, and he was like, I'm trying to back off of my normal job and do music full time. I'm trying to get booked more often, and how do you do that? And I was like, hey, guess what? We're having this little workshop here on Wednesday. But it's hard for everyone. It's taken me a long time to build the relationship with Bourbon Street that I have, and so now I'm there Thursdays, most Fridays, almost every Saturday, and for covering for gigs when people cancel on us last minute on Saturdays and Sundays. So like, it is a lot about cultivating a relationship as well. I mean, Jenni said it. I said it. If a venue owner is like, we trust you. What day of the week every month do you want? Right. And that's a hard thing to do. It takes a lot of time and patience. But again, we're people. I'm learning songs for projects. I'm like building promotional material. I'm not going to get back to you right away.
Don't
Guaranteed.
oversaturate yourself too in the same
what I was
area.
just
Yes, exactly.
Like there's a lot of musicians that I don't book on a monthly rotation where I would have otherwise if they're playing at 4 other venues sprinkled in the same week. Like that makes your marquee value such a crap term, but kind of like if you're good and people are coming out to see you, if they can see you on this day, or this day, like it's too oversaturated and it's not as valuable to the venue then, like to where they might want somebody more original that is not playing like at the same 4 restaurants around you, like around the clock.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point and something that's hard, especially if you're looking to make this a career and you want to be a full-time musician. You want to make enough money that you can do that. And I think that we're sort of lucky in the Wilmington area. Jenni's restaurant is in Carolina Beach.
Yeah.
So there's like a pretty good amount of Wilmington. Frequently in my little script I say Wilmington and surrounding areas. Leland is coming up now. Brunswick. Who's my Brunswick folks in here? Every time I turn around, there's another brewery opening up in Leland. They're taking a page right out of the downtown Wilmington book and just breweries as far as the eye can see. But Leland is really opening up, and most of these places want to do the classic brewery thing. They want a little bit of music, maybe Sunday day or Saturday daytime, Sunday night, maybe a band. So there's Brunswick and Leland. Of course, there's downtown Wilmington where you can just trip over venues that are looking for music. There's some stuff going on in Midtown. I play at like Panacea, and I'm not sure. I'm trying to think if there's any other places around that area.
Yeah, Locals Tavern.
Locals Tavern, there's one. I'm in the Ogden area of Wilmington, and so around me there used to be Fermental. I do miss it. I know they're in the cargo district now. And there's all these little areas of downtown, by the way, as well. So there's like the heart of downtown Wilmington, kind of where Bourbon Street is, and then there's the cargo district. And the cargo district has like their cargo district people. Where we are is becoming called the Soda Pop District, and it's starting to come up right up the street. That way. On Princess is both Highwire and now Bowstring. They're both booking music, and this is kind of a different area than the heart of downtown Wilmington. In Ogden, there's Ogden Tap Room, there's 7 Mile Post, and then you can keep going, to Carolina Beach, to Surf City. So within an hour, or an hour and a half span, depending on traffic, oh God, that's another workshop, no. There's a large portion of area. So that's another thing to be said about booking. Don't get stuck in your area, especially to risk saturating yourself in your own area.
That's
Spread
how
your
you end
wings
up
a
in
little.
5 bands.
Huh?
That's how you end up in 5 bands. Because it'll be
The monkey
100%,
function for
dude.
this area. But that's also a great point though about the bands is that kind of helps because you might get booked. You might be booked all week, but you're booked with different projects in different areas, so you're not
or if
risking
it's the same
that.
area. Like I've been able to you know, if Dirty White Rags plays on Friday at 7 Mile and I'm there with Boba Funk Saturday, I'll leave my drums. You know, it's everything is secure, it's locked up, but it's completely different music. So I don't feel oversaturated there, but I have run into, you know, like if it's Volkswagen and then I'll do like a solo, I'm like, feel like I just played this at the same place. And so I try to steer clear of that. I call it Downtown Ogden.
Downtown Ogden.
We got the 7 Mile, Ogden Tap Room, the Broomtail, all right there.
That's true, yeah, that little stretch of places.
I will say it also helps if you are a solo artist as well as like playing in a band.
I was just going to bring that up.
Like
so go ahead
that's something. I mean, Chris Pearson was supposed to be here tonight. He fronts just yesterday, and he plays solo around town. And that man stays busy. That's one of the reasons why we asked him to here. And good problems. He got asked to cover a gig last minute. So I mean,
He couldn't come to the booking panel because he got booked.
because he got booked. So like, heard and deeply understood. But I mean, being versatile helps a lot. Stu being in 17 and a half bands as well as playing solo is a huge advantage because he's versatile. He'll be able to play if the Seawitch was like, I want, you know, this day and this day, and it won't feel oversaturated to have him there a couple times a month. So I mean, it makes sense to be versatile and to have a couple different projects you're in. I play my everything from Black Sabbath to Britney Spears, but it's mostly 80s and 90s rock and, you know, alternative. And then with Delia and friends and with the duo, we play a lot more like rock and pop stuff. And so it doesn't feel like we're doing the same thing over and over again. And that also helps for your mental health as an artist. No one wants to repeat themselves. No one wants to repeat themselves. And, and I can't. She's going to throw me out next. But it helps to keep things interesting if you're doing different stuff. So it also behooves you, not just for booking purposes, but just as a human being to do different things.
I agree. If you are, once again, just to say this, I think we kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. If you are a musician, maybe you play multiple things, you're a lead guitarist in a band, but maybe you want to sub in sometimes for other bands. It's just another reason to get out on the scene again, to go to open mics. Somebody hears you play, oh, that guy's pretty good. The nature of Delia and Friends, and the reason why I named it that, is that I have a core band, but they're busy. John Hussman I also asked to be here because he's always very busy, but he was booked. And he, you know, a lot of members of my bands, they're very busy and they play with a lot of other bands. So the nature of Delia and Friends is that I have folks sub in, other folks that I trust. So I'm always looking and have my ear out for people that I like out there because I might be like, hey, Stu, what are you doing? Want to join my band for a night? Yeah, that's right. I joined the Stu crew one night. So again, just to reiterate, getting out there on the scene, and if you do play multiple instruments and you want to do that, I mean, make that known because you might be subbing in for a band and end up joining it, or just kind of piecing yourself out to the point where you can make a living doing that as well, being partially an accompaniment musician.
If you're a guitarist, claim you play bass. Figure it out.
That's how I ended up on the bass originally. This was in high school, but they were like, we have too many guitarists, but you can play bass. I was like, no, I can't. They're like, you can play guitar.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I did the reverse. I was a bassist, and I said, yeah, I can play guitar. Sure.
Yeah.
What's a chord again?
What's a chord again? The chord? All right, my next discussion point is a little controversial still to this day. I think part of the reason for that is, in general, people, whether or not you work in the music industry or whether or not you all work in the same office, we are sort of culturally brainwashed into thinking that talking about money is a little distasteful and that you shouldn't really ask about it and you shouldn't really talk about how much you make. And we find that that is true for musicians as well. People are a little hesitant to talk about money. People are a little hesitant to admit how much venues pay them. Part of that is that some venues will ask, well, what's your rate? And so you might not know, you know, they're paying different rates for different musicians depending on what their rates are. Some places pay a baseline. On here, as you see, I have a couple of descriptions of different types of gigs. when do you play for free, fundraisers and free events? We'll kind of come back to that subject also. Controversial and touchy subject. Pay to play, something I just hate to do. Door covers, something that you do see happen in Wilmington a lot. And I will say that I do find that this is common in original art scene. The original singer-songwriters and the original music, we get stuck with those covers at the door more frequently than everybody else, and it can be a little bit of a hindrance to getting people in there. And the percentage of the bar, these are all different ways that places pay. Percentage of the bar can go either way on you at any given moment. And of course, there's a guaranteed rate. That's usually when a venue asks you what's your rate, and you respond. Now, I will say that when I first came into Wilmington, I was brand new. I'm from New York originally. I had been playing there, but I was not a full-time musician there. I think the first gig I took here was like $50. And then I think the second highest gig I got paid was $100, and I thought, oh yeah, $100, all right. Talk to each other a little bit. And we're gonna talk a little bit about pay now and how to sort of value yourself and when you might play for free. But that's the only way to sort of know what is the actual baseline. Sometimes you'll work with people who are booking on your behalf for venues, and the baseline rate still seems to be about $150 for 3 hours. It's an unfortunate little rate, in my opinion, but I'll take it sometimes, depending on the venue, and again, depending on the relationship we have. I might take that, even though it's under my base rate of where I like it now, because I know that venue's gonna book me all year round, and they give me a $50 bar tab, and I'm taking it. So there are reasons and relationships that come into play as to why you might play one venue for one price and play another for another price. So I just want to, before we get into everybody chatting about payment and value and how to value yourself, because I know there's strong opinions about this, I want to just touch on free events real quick. Every once in a while, we see on Facebook some poor new bartender at some place go into the Talking Tunes group or the Live and Local Music group.
That poor lady. She got
and
dragged.
start to ask if there's anybody who wants to play for free at their venue.
No.
There was one person, no offense if you're in the room right now, who had a store opening and wanted a 4-piece brass band at 8 a.m. in the morning for free. What in the world?
That's not jazz.
That person,
That's not jazz.
that person deleted their post after the responses they got for that. For the most part, the music community will sort of come to the rescue and say, that's not appropriate. If a venue is asking you to play for free, you have to really think about why. Why do we play for free sometimes? Sometimes I play at an open mic for free.
Yeah.
You know, because I want to network, I want to get out there, maybe I want to play at that place, maybe I'm just having fun or testing some stuff out. I think the most frequent thing I do for free is I play some fundraisers. Sometimes a community member is having some sort of surgery and we're raising money. I've played many related to people's dogs and pets. What is now the Greenfield Lake Yacht Club, that used to be the Dubliner. The Dubliner was famous for fundraising. And all the bands would get free beer, and we'd be like, yeah, let's go. So there are reasons that you may play for free in town, fundraisers, community events. You want to be part of a showcase that isn't paying or doesn't pay well, but is part of a community building experience, and you want to get out there and see some original music, you might be part of that. Be wary of almost anything outside of that, I would say. If a venue is asking you to play for free or for way underneath, just consider that even if you're super new or green or fresh, you're hurting the rest of the community by taking these free gigs. And we're sort of hurting the community by not having these money conversations and underselling ourselves, because then everybody gets used to sort of a baseline rate. So as we talk about that, just keep in mind that we all have to sort of decide what our value is and what our rates are for ourselves, and whether or not we want to take certain rates at certain venues depending on our relationship with them and depending on what we get out of it. Shawn, would you like to start the money conversation?
Playing for free certainly does not keep the party going.
It does not keep the party going. No.
You can't keep the party going for free.
No.
I can say very plainly, as a solo artist, I charge $180. That's my usual baseline rate. And then I'm going to contradict myself because booking for Bourbon Street, The rate is $150 plus a $25 bar tab, and that is under what a lot of people charge, which is understandable. But Bourbon Street provides a sound system for you already there, so that's part of the setup process you don't have to do. And for a solo musician, that's a good portion of the setup process. We're all looking powered speakers and stuff. And really, it's what is it worth to you setting that stuff up? If it's not worth $150, don't take the gig. But I will say that Bourbon Street is one of the venues that will book you out 12 times a year. And I will call you for coverage gigs as well. I have a list of people that I will call that will be there for that I know can be available or want coverage. So you may end up playing a 3-hour gig for $150, and then the same month someone drops out randomly and you'll make another $150. And also peak season, summertime, you will make tips. People are in and out of Bourbon Street all the time. You can't depend on tips, and it's not super reliable, but it's the rate that Danny has agreed to, and I understand where he comes from in that it's $175 if you're counting the $25 gift card to Bourbon Street's. So
If you're getting the
if you're
shrimp platter.
use the $25.
Get
Get
that
your
food.
money's worth. Get the shrimp platter and a thing of beignets.
Before we move on to the other folks, and again, there's no pressure to reveal your rate or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just want to chat about it a little bit. Shawn, I remember you, but I don't remember exactly what it was that you had stolen from a YouTuber, an equation of how you decide to take a gig. Is it this? Is it that? And it has to be at least 2 out of 3.
It's the triangle of gig decision making. Are the people cool? Is the music cool? And is the pay cool? And it has to meet 2 out of 3 of those. And I have a secret 4th one, which is the food good? So if it's only one of them, but the food's pretty dang good, I might still take the gig. But that's the way I decide whether or not I want to do a show anymore, because I can just run sound if I want to, just get paid. But if I'm playing with people, I want to have good people around me. I want to play good music, and I want to get paid well. So if it's not 2 out of 3 of those things, I got it from an Adam Neely video, by the way.
Okay.
Great musician, great YouTuber, cool music stuff. But that's usually how I make my decisions when it comes to music stuff.
Maybe we can find his video
Oh,
on that
100%.
to send for follow-up as well.
Yes.
So I encourage you all to sort of come up with your own triangle, if not that triangle, of why are you doing this, and under what circumstances do you want to take a certain gig? Jenni, do you want to talk a little bit about Seawitch in terms of rate and how you get there?
Band
Yeah.
payment.
You're one of the best. I just want to be clear, we love Seawitch.
Absolutely.
And we think that Seawitch is a great example. One of the reasons why I asked you to be on this panel was a great example of you're paying everybody from your solos, duos, and bands well, providing good service for them, providing a great venue. And it's just a no-brainer for musicians in town, I think.
There are a lot of shitty venue owners out there who will try to take advantage of you, so you need to be your own advocate with that, 100%. For baseline prices for us, as a business, to make a decent profit margin, 10% of sales would go to entertainment, and then the rest goes to overhead, labor, product cost, all of that. So that is the number that I look at as a venue of what to spend through the year. We paid $200 a solo and $400 a duo through summer and the off season. I used to do a flex pay where I paid more in the summer and less in the winter, just because the bank account used to go crazy back then. And then I made it just kind of consistent because it wasn't the same amount of dates for everybody, and I wanted it to be fair. Fundraisers and free events, you should never play for free unless you want to. As a venue, if I have a fundraiser, even if I'm donating so much of something, I'm making a shit ton of money because there's a ton of people that are in there for that fundraiser. I have never not paid a band full price for a fundraiser, and you should be very leery, if somebody doesn't, they are profiting from that fundraiser too. unless they're giving like 100% of sales. But like even if I was giving 100% of food sales to this event that gave me, 6 times the normal amount of customers that are drinking regular price drinks that I'm not being it, like I can afford to pay a band for entertainment for that. So just be careful of that too. Pay to play, let's see, door covers. We do door covers for select bands. It is above a $2,000 range. Those are ones that are in the summer that I am guaranteed a $20,000 a night guaranteed, and I have to normally run with like 8 security. Like it's just the whole overhead of it costs more, and that's why we do a cover. So it doesn't normally go to bands, but I pay them in a high price range anyway if they're in that bracket. Percentage of bar, I think is stupid to do because there's so many factors like weather and other stuff. Like I don't do that at all. A guaranteed rate is what we do. I do throw bonuses if it's a crazy good night. I think that goes a long way to musicians too. So like if out of the blue a wedding party came in with 300 people or whatever, you kept people in, like then I will absolutely give more money. And then bar tabs, because prices of drinks have went up like so much in the past 5 years. It used to be $25 a person. Now it has gotten a lot more, just expanding. Now sometimes up to 75 to 100 for a duo, and that's just because if they're drinking like a margarita that's $10 on the beach, that's why. Sometimes I look at just what is my cost of goods for it to base it off of for that. But yeah, so we do high bar tabs too, but don't get hammered during those. That is to account for like if you're just drinking higher end stuff or getting food as well.
I just want to reiterate what Jenni just said.
Yes.
Don't get hammered at your show. We are probably one of the only other job that I've had where I could drink regularly was as a pub ghost walk guide for the pub crawl. And I often joke, people are like, you can drink too? I was like, I only take jobs I can drink. But we are lucky that if you enjoy a tasty beverage, that is sort of built into the culture and frequently built into the perks of being a musician. Do not abuse that. Because it can be easy to do, and it can be exactly how you never get invited back to the venue ever again. So just wanted to really kind of reiterate what you're saying there, Jenni. We are lucky that is sort of built into our culture, if that's your thing. I appreciate that we can go around to all these different breweries and try all this different stuff. I think it's great. I think it's cool. I enjoy a drink. Moderation.
I did think it was weird when I first moved down here, and I was like, I don't really drink when I'm outside my house. People are like, you don't drink? Oh
Yep.
no, Shawn doesn't drink. Don't do anything for him. He doesn't drink at all. I'm like, why is that such a big deal? And it's like, oh, because that's the culture here.
And thanks for bringing that up, Shawn, especially about it being the culture here, because I just want to mention that the painter and the poet space here, this is a dry studio space. And one of the reasons that Milk has expressed that he did that was that he found that at a lot of places, the music goes a little unnoticed, or it gets drowned out as the night progresses and your bar patrons are drunker and drunker and louder, and he wanted to create a space that people were really listening in. So just want to give a little kudos to Milk for thinking ahead about stuff like that. And it can be difficult for performers and creatives who are trying to not drink as much or trying to be sober. It's very triggering to try to go book places. So if this is something for you, just think about that. There are places, it's getting more popular to do so. We see locally Moxie kind of rising up with their mocktails, and more places are adding mocktail menus to their things. So there is an avenue for some dry, sober events as well, just in case. Stuart, I know you feel passionately about payment because we've had this conversation many times. That's another reason why I asked you to be here today.
I'm tasteless. I always discuss pay.
I really appreciate that about you, by the way.
Well, I remember when you first came in town. I think I was playing with Boba Funk at Fermental, and I was told by someone else. Back in '98, I was doing solo acoustic gigs, and I was in a band called Clobberhouse, and my friend Bubba Cox cussed me out because he was like, "Man, you're playing for free. What the fuck are you thinking?" And I was like, "What? It doesn't cost me anything. I love doing it." And he's like, "You were screwing me." I was like, "How?" And he's like, "Musicians have been getting $100 a man since the 1920s, and this is back in the 90s, like almost 100 years, and we're still getting $100 a man." And so once I started getting out there, I it's okay to turn down a gig if they're not paying, but I lead with what is your budget for entertainment? And, if they're like, oh, how many people are in the band? I try not to look at it that way because it's a job that needs to be done. If you have a electrical problem, you don't ask how many electricians are going to fix it. It's you have a job and you have an allotted budget towards it. Now, I also don't like to overcharge. Like, I could get way more for Boba Funk because there's 3 of us, but I try to put it at, like, her number, 200 per person to me is more than reasonable. Sometimes I'll do more if it's a solo gig because you are setting up everything. It's a lot more taxing. And as far as group gigs go, like for Bourbon Street right now, I'm actually holding off on booking because, I gave him a break to get Monkey Function in, and now he wants them like once a month or once every other month, a lot. And but we're only doing it for $600, which is what I get for the 3-piece to play there. So I have to have that discussion with him.
Do it.
But yeah, but like Delia was saying, if someone is hiring me, if I get a slot once a month, then I'll give a break. I have lowered the price to avoid a cover because I don't want people to have to pay a cover. It's just some people will just walk away immediately. They don't want to pull out cash. Or, I don't want them to have my card information here. It's so many reasons to not charge a cover. But if it's like Flannel Rebellion, someone that doesn't play often and every show is packed, like standing room only. Everywhere I've ever seen that band, Phantom Playboys, there's a few bands that is going to always be packed. I don't mind paying a cover for that. But yeah, like a 7 Mile, their cutoff is $1,200. Like anything over 12, they'll charge a cover. So I've dropped rates so we can play there without having to charge a cover. But also, I'm there at least once or twice a month with one of the bands.
Yeah.
And so I also, I appreciate venues that appreciate live music. I've stopped playing places. A really good friend of mine, I've been playing there since he opened. And my solo gigs were always 100. And then a band, it was 100 a man. And there's free alcohol, but I don't want that to be the reason we're playing. And I do enjoy drinking, but I almost never, like, I know you barely seen me drink. Like, I'll go all night without drinking while we're playing. Somebody will bring the band around, and I may or may not take it. But I usually wait till afterwards. I'm breaking down. I can't relax until the job is done. And now I will every night. If I'm having nerves, I'll have a shot and a beer. And like before performing, but it also depends on who I'm playing with. If I'm a fill-in, which happens often, I won't touch anything until I'm done. And but Seawitch, I did a show there with Frank Grant. It was last minute. I'm filling in, and we ended up playing. I played 4.5 hours with 0 breaks because I was the drummer, and it was going to be 3 hours. But the guy comes up and gave us a lot of extra money to play another hour. And I think we all got like $350 each, and there was 6 of us on that stage. And after the tips and everything, it was just and the Lazy Pirate was the only other place I've ever where they were like, oh, if you have a great night, we'll pay you extra. Everybody has said that to me, and it has never happened other than the Seawitch and the Lazy Pirate.
Yeah.
And if we get extra, it's because we get tips.
Yeah.
As far as the free playing, I do every food truck rodeo. I've always provided the music for that one. Fermental provides free beer, and I think we get $200. But I have a 3-piece band and 2 5-piece bands, and I play all day. And so the 150 or 200, whatever it is, I give to my friend Alex, who runs the sound all day. And he also he doesn't live in Charlotte anymore. Now he lives in Sanford. So it's only a 2-hour drive every weekend. He's coming to town tomorrow. I'll be playing with Volkswagen, so he's covering for our bass player for that gig at Ogden Tap Room tomorrow, or Friday night. And then Saturday, he's at Bowstring with me, so he'll stay with me. And but yeah, Bowstring was another one where if we didn't text, because like we opened up for the Doors tribute band, and we agreed on 600, and then the time changed, and he wanted us inside, so. And he wanted us to take less pay since we're coming inside and not using the PA. I was like, man, it was a month out, and we're still playing the same amount of time, and people are traveling to get here, and I would prefer to keep, what we said. That would be like me saying, well, since there were so many more people, why don't you give me more money? And which I would never do that. If a venue chooses to do that, we love it. But I never expected, but it appreciated.
I do have an inside-outside rate on the cusp months, because everybody books so far in advance, which is crazy. But so if it's in March or November, where it's it could be 80 degrees or 20 degrees, we don't know what we're gonna get. Then I will have an inside rate and an outside rate. It's not to be shysty. It is, hey, if it's 80 degrees, I can use 60% more of our seating that's outdoor, and it's going to be busy, and I can merit that. If it is confined to an enclosed tiki bar where we lose 60% of seating, I can only generate so much revenue. So I do that. I mean, it hasn't happened a ton, but some of those cusp months I definitely do.
Right. So for him, it was because he wanted us to move from outside to inside because the ticket holders. He didn't want people to get there, get their seat, and then we're playing outside and they don't come outside. So I was like, I didn't understand why he would want us to play for less since, he wanted us to entertain the people inside. And if we made that decision, then I feel like it would be all right. But also it was the day of the show.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and because otherwise I would...
Great time to discuss the
And but yeah, and then we ended up only playing for an hour and 45 minutes. And originally it was 3 hours, but again, that was his last minute decision. And any other time I'm more than accommodating, but with my bass player coming from out of town, he had to take the day off from Epic Games to drive here. And I didn't want to inconvenience him, and also just the standard, how upset I get when I find out because I do have a day job, and I think it takes a lot of guts to only do music. And we're fortunate in Wilmington because we do have a lot of venues and owners like yourself that appreciate us and make it so that we can do it. But we also have places where we can play 7 nights a week if we want to. And I've had 5 gigs in 2 days before because you can play a morning show, a noon show, night show, and then Wisteria Festival was the end where I didn't start playing until midnight. And I can't remember when we stopped, and we might still be playing.
An outdoor venue is tricky too. We try to make it work. I understand that, let's say it's pouring cats and dogs, just regular rain. A band that I booked, if they took an inside job gig, would still be business as usual, maybe a little bit slower because it's outside. I normally don't cancel unless it's a mutual decision. And sometimes we will be hey, this is not gonna work. Let's make a remake date where it's not really harming anybody. And then, act of God stuff like hurricane and stuff, that'll do. But yeah, that's tough with an outdoor venue, and I would definitely kind of know the venue's expectations for cancellations too. I will never cancel a band because it's shysty, but I see so many that just because the weather's bad, full bands, oh, we're canceled, where if they would have done...
That's how I get half my gigs.
That's crazy to me.
Early in the day,
no.
And they're canceled. I'm like, what? Yeah. I will never cancel. I always let the venue make that decision.
If you're in a band, a good solution is, if it's something like that, even to have a backup plan. A lot of ours, let's say that your band was booked outside and it was raining cats and dogs, we could arrange ahead of time, hey, if it gets this crappy of weather, we can't fit the full band inside, how about we just do a duo or a trio for this rate? You can always be creative about it, and owners normally want to too.
Yeah.
Well, and I was going to mention that, Jenni, about you is at least that we had that conversation ahead of time.
Right.
When it came to the band, solo, duo, that was a conversation already had, not one sprung on you at the last minute by the venue, where it's you still know the conditions and you still agree to it because you feel either way the money is good and I'm accepting of this. So just to kind of review, because I know that was a lot of information, especially when it comes to money stuff, have the reasons why you want to play sort of well defined to you. Why do you take a gig, right? Is it fun? Is it good money? Is it people that you want to play with? What is your motivating factors? What are those motivating factors, and where can you find those? Those will help you find the venues that you're interested in and want to develop that relationship with. When it comes to money, I really do want to just encourage us as a creative community to have those conversations with each other, because it can be awkward to be like, and when are you getting paid? Because there's still that kind of stuff that's going on where a venue's paying somebody a little bit more, but 9 times out of 10 that's happening, because when a venue asks, what's your rate? And someone's just going for it, $300, and they're like, okay, and you're like,
That's why I follow
and you
1-2
say
budget.
180, and they're like, okay, and you're like, oh, why is that person getting $300 and I'm getting 180? Because you told them 180.
I
So,
don't pay a
think about
difference
that.
based on like what people say their rate is,
Right.
because that's super shady to do.
I agree.
But I do pay extra to ones that I have an exclusivity agreement to, like.
Yes.
There's even some solo ones, like if I like you so much, you're original, and I don't want you oversaturated at all other 12 bars around me, I will pay extra and book you more often to have you not play like on our beach range. But yeah, no, some places do that, but we
were
definitely-
actually just talking about that and the
Yeah.
conditions under which somebody would do that. Shawn was sharing a story where he was with a band where the expectation was that they were not going to be in other projects. And when he said, well, how much are we getting paid to not do that? And they were like, no. I was like, well, that's not going to
Yeah,
happen.
they were like, oh, yeah, well, there is such a thing as a non-compete. I'm like, yes, so what's my salary going to be for this non-compete?
Yeah.
Right.
Because absolutely not.
So those are good things to think about, and kind of deciding for yourself what your baseline rate is, because also do remember that you're playing for 2 to 3 hours. Lazy Pirate, that's a 4-hour gig, right? Is it still 4 hours? Oh,
Yep.
boy. That 4th hour is just like, I don't really love a 4-hour gig, so I usually turn those down. But again, that's just me, that's the decision that I've made after being like, I cannot do this. But do consider that you're traveling to the venue. That's time that you're spending. I get to venues about an hour ahead of time to set up. That's an hour and then maybe 40 minutes on the end of it of setup and breakdown time. So it's not like, oh, I'm getting paid X amount and I'm playing for 3 hours. That's whatever an hour. Take into consideration the hour of setup time and the 45 minutes to an hour of breakdown time that you have on either end of that. Take into consideration that if you're traveling to Surf City and you live in downtown Wilmington, you've got a little ride ahead of you. So those are things that you want to think about also when you are deciding what your base rate is. And again, I encourage you to work with places that you want to be with. And if you are taking less than you think that you are worth, make it because you really love the business so much, or because they're booking you out for the year, or because you love that particular beer they have and your tab is always covered there, or something like that. Make sure that it's worthwhile to you one way or the other. Now we're gonna get to wrapping up pretty quick. I want to talk a little bit about organization, because another thing that I'm gonna follow up with for y'all is my template that I use. Really, I just use Google. If you are a Google person, you know that basically it's like a copy of what Word does. Like the documents, the spreadsheets, it all kind of looks exactly the same. So I'm a Google fiend. I love my Google Drive and all of my spreadsheets. And I have a booking contact list. And this was really something that I probably should have made a long time ago. It definitely needs some updates. It is exactly what it sounds like. A list of venues, a list of the people that book for those venues, a list of how I get in touch with those people. Is it Facebook? Is it email? Is it Instagram? Is it a phone number? And a link to that Facebook, Instagram, email, the phone number, whatever it is. This helps me in so many different ways. First of all, when you're sitting there thinking about booking, it's very easy to just kind of blank out. And you're like, I play at venues? Where? And your brain's like, I don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, you've got your sheet in front of you. Oh, cool, I haven't reached out to this person in a while. Oh, I emailed that person last Friday. Let me follow up on that. It is so necessary for me to have a spreadsheet like that in front of me. I do not update it as much as I should. I need to take a good hour with my spreadsheet this year and update it for the year, and as I'm preparing for booking going ahead. And also, while I'm on that subject, I want to say, get reaching out. My January is almost full. Start reaching out now to the venues that you want to play then. Places, and I know, Jenny, you're like, it's so far in advance. And it is. And I thought it would get kind of like slow after COVID, but it did the opposite.
Yeah,
where
it
now
ramped up
there's
after
some
COVID.
places, again, that want to book out through the year.
Every
And,
big band we have, I have been forced to book now because they're booking out through the end of 2024. But the problem is that life happens, like one wrench in that plan, which like if somebody's like, oh, my cousin's getting married now, I can't do that with all the other dates booked, like there's nowhere to move it. Like it's very frustrating. I wish it wouldn't be that early.
And I reserve, so I book quarterly for Bourbon Street, so I only book for like per season. And I have artists reaching out to me right now for like their January through such and such. And I'm like, I'm not going to start booking that until December. So hold on. There are some places that will book out that far in advance. I won't, and that doesn't give good opportunity for, in my opinion, for new bands to show up and for new acts to come through. I think it helps a lot with people who maybe did miss the November, December, January booking through the entire year like phase. They can be like, oh man, I don't have any gigs. I'm like, actually, we can start booking you for April, May, and June right now if you want.
You know, that might be a good section to add to my spreadsheet. When they book and how they book, yearly,
Yes.
quarterly. Just consider that even if a place is booking quarterly, they're probably booked up right now through their last quarter.
Yeah.
Most places that you're going to talk to right now are booked up through December. And so don't let that deter you. If you're, whether or not you're new or old on the scene, like it can be very hard to kind of run into the rejection of it. But most places are going to be booked up. Go ahead and ask them, when are you booking for 2024? And again, the polite harassment I have been doing with a lot of venues, and a lot of people have said to me, oh my God, are people booking for the new year already? I need to go get another calendar. I'm like, we're ready. I'm ready when you are, you know? And just kind of following up, hey, it's me again. If they say, oh, I'm going to probably do it by the end of September, and it's mid-October and I haven't heard from them yet, I politely send another email. Hey, I thought we were going to do September. I will write a little note in my calendar when I get that response. Oh, I'm going to be booking in December for the next year. Okay. So in my calendar in December, I will write myself a note because I will not remember that far in advance to call so-and-so when it's, you know, the beginning of December so that I can get in for the next year. Do understand that some venues book out through their year. I have December 2024 dates on the books already. So you will run into some venues where you're already too late. And it kind of sucks, but it's just the way that they choose to book. They have folks that they know, they trust, they don't want to think about it too much. You're in, you're in, you're in.
There's always cancellations too, so don't ever let that discourage you. Like, I don't know, we probably had 30 this year with stuff, and yeah, like I've used the Talking Tunes thing in desperation, like who can help me out, you know? So yeah, but if you just say politely, like put me on your like makeup date backup list, whatever, like that helps.
We'll keep your resume on file.
Yeah.
That's a great point though, because I will say when I book a couple dates, like, oh, keep me in mind for fill-ins and stuff like that. And it does just kind of put you on the radar of when people are thinking when somebody cancels, especially the places that I'm very close to. And I know if they have a last minute cancellation somewhere in Ogden, like I can be there in 10 minutes, you know, my stuff's in my car already, let's go. So I think that's a great idea. But tomorrow I will send out just a template for what I use to keep these booking contacts in nice, organized order, and it's really so helpful to me, not only to kind of trigger my memory of where I'm reaching out to book at all, but to kind of keep track of who these folks are, how I'm getting in touch with them, what is the most responsive. Some venues I don't hear from at all on Facebook, but then on Instagram they're immediately responsive. And like y'all said, like maybe you check the Facebook more than Instagram. It's nice to have a little note about that in the venues that you want to get in touch with, because you might not remember in a month exactly how you got in touch with them. At least that's my experience. So we will send that out tomorrow alongside that script of exactly what to say to these venues in our follow-up email. For our final thoughts, the most valuable tool to stay organized, like I said, I use the spreadsheet, I use my planner. I'm still a paper planner person. As much as I am on my phone and on my computer all the time, I need a paper planner in front of me to make sense of what my schedule looks like. So that thing is like my Bible. I'm like, oh, my planner.
That goes with you everywhere you go.
You see that planner everywhere.
And she has a clear backpack, so you can see it.
Let's speak to the things that help us stay organized when it comes to booking. Shawn, you want to start?
Google Calendar has been a lifesaver, and I know that it's not like people have their different app daddies that they use. But listen, it is what it is.
Words that came out of your mouth.
It came right from here. But that's because, it's about 15 minutes until I turn into a pumpkin. I'm not gigging, so it's... But especially for booking for Bourbon Street, Danny and I have a shared Google Calendar so that he and I can be on the same page about who's playing and when. And so that he can be like, hey, you have this person for this time. If they're not here yet, what's going on? And I will probably have already informed him, he just didn't see it yet, that they were running late. But I know that there are other apps out there. Chris, what do you guys use for
We use an app called Bandmule.
Bandmule?
Yeah, so if you're in a band and you're trying to figure out who's available when for multiple members and booking, you can basically go on the calendar and mark if you're not available. So then when everybody's looking at the calendar, it shows you only the available dates.
That's awesome. I like that.
There's another app like that. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. But yeah, like when you're sending it out to multiple
Yeah, so
people.
it does there's a band chat, which we don't really use. There's the calendar with availabilities and there's set lists.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
what is the name of it again?
Bandmule.
Bandmule. Okay, I've never heard of that.
Like that.
Interesting.
How do you spell that?
Band and then mule. M-U-L-E. Yes.
That was
Heard. Like donkey. Nice. But Google Calendar, Google Sheets is amazing. I have my booking sheet that I stole from Amanda a few years ago because it was shared, and hers is better now, I've heard. You could have just sent her yours.
I probably will.
Give me all the spreadsheet.
Community over competition. Send everyone's contact info right now. But it's a lifesaver, and I like a lot. I don't remember if you mentioned it or not, but putting where you book, like how you contact the person, like your main mode of contact, because you could have been talking to this person, and if you don't remember how you were talking with them and you're not getting the results that you want from something else, if you're not going back to that and saying, oh, duh, I was talking to them over text. Why am I messaging them on Facebook? They never check their Facebook. I mean, you're talking at a wall. So yeah, it makes sense to have that level of how you're talking to people and stuff like that. I really appreciate that. But also Google Docs, just having a simple, I have a list of who I talk to, who I am currently booking, who I've been told to book monthly by the owners, who the bartenders have said, yes, please have them back, who the bartenders have emphatically said, no, never have them back. And I keep that stuff pretty close to the chest because if I'm going to be booking these people, I have to be willing to say, hey, I'm sorry, we're not booking you this year for XYZ reason. I'm not going to accidentally do something that the venue or the bartenders don't want. So it's keep organized, keep something uniform. Like you said, you use your Google Drive all the time. It's a little chaotic sometimes, but it's definitely a great tool, especially for sharing amongst band members. Because I remember you were sharing all of the original material when I first joined up with you guys. And that was so helpful for just reference material and communication and stuff like that. It was really good. So Google Calendar, Google Sheets, and I had one more thing. It was the search function in chats. Being able to go back and if a person's like, well, we booked you for this past year, and if they're wrong, it's not hard to just be like, well, let's look up $, and where was I last year? Okay, no, I was actually being paid $180, so let's keep going with that. Or you guys have brought your rates up for other people this year. I like my rate brought up too. Being able to look back on your conversations is very helpful, especially for people with poor memories like me.
Jenni, how do you keep organized with all of the 60 emails you get plus Facebook messages plus
Sometimes
Instagram?
I just ignore those. It is mentally draining, and I cannot respond to them. I'd be spending at least 10 hours extra a week doing that, and I just don't have the time. But we use Google Calendar. Bands used to share their Google Calendar, but then it added to a whole list of my normal stuff, so I don't like doing that. We have one with with all the managers with it, like with pay, who the check's written to, all the details, so there can't be any shenanigans, because some musicians try to pull some fast ones. But always keep a hard copy too of anything, because we had a manager one time drunk that deleted a lot of stuff out of there, and I had a hard copy, but that is why I had it. Yeah. Or even if you're in a band too and use Google Calendar, like I think anybody that you add, you can make it to where like they can't add things, like if you have a ringleader that does it. But always just be thinking about that, because that stuff can happen. So definitely have a hard copy of
Yeah, I think
everything.
you can set it to view only
Yeah.
for certain people.
But that's a great point, because to lose it all.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Stu, how do you keep organized with all your multiple projects?
There's 17 and a half
Also
bands.
Google Calendar.
The Google Calendar is the winner of the night.
Yeah, and like if someone's, but we do share it with all the bands. So for me, it's easy, and because I used to hate, I would go through, write down unavailable dates, and take a picture and send it. You know, this is my calendar where I'm already playing. But now they can just open it. Oh, he's playing there. He's playing there. If they're not available, they save the date as not available, and so it's a lot easier. So now if I'm booking, I can just glance and, you know, because sometimes they'll come up, like, man, I have a spot for you. We'd like to have you in here. And so now instead of, well, I have to call 5 people and wait for them to get back to me, and which sometimes that still happens. I'll be like, oh shit, I forgot to say I'm not available. But that's the key, have more bands, so you can be like, hey, I don't want to lose this date, I'll bring a different band. And yeah, Google Calendar and hard copy. Like I have a calendar at work that, you know, if I need time off, and it's like a huge desk calendar, like, and each square is, you know, I can write so much on it. And but yeah, hard copy, because I have lost a phone before and had to go to every venue I was playing and get them to break out their calendar. By the way, what's your phone number again? Because I lost that too. And yeah, so hard copies are definitely, you gotta have it.
What a like 2-sentence horror story. Like, I lost my Google Calendar. Like,
Yeah.
I lost my phone. I cannot even fathom having to go to every venue that I'm booked with and be like, what are my dates again? Because I don't even know that I could remember everybody. You know what I mean? Like,
Have a hard copy of your password for Google so you can access
Yeah.
it from things like a computer.
yes, great, good advice all around there. But something to stay organized is really super important, because another thing that will obviously reflect poorly is missing gigs because you forgot about it, or having to cancel because you didn't realize something was going into each other. You know, there are obviously reasons everybody has to cancel gigs sometimes. You're sick, you have a family emergency, your car breaks down on the way, something like that. But there's no faster way to not get booked with venues again than to be unreliable. So we'll just say that. So we're getting pretty close to 9, so I want to open up the floor now for anyone who has questions for our panelists regarding booking. Again, keeping in mind that both Shawn and Jenni are booking on behalf of venues, can answer questions about what venues are looking for and things like that, and that Shawn and Stu are musicians themselves, and me as well. We can answer questions about that side of booking. So if you have a question, just raise your hand.
I got one.
Yeah.
Hey, Shawn, I gotta get with you later. Daniel messed my calendar all up for next year.
Listen, that's not me. That's band stuff. That's not me.
Like I said, we're the Jackknife Band. We're booked up every weekend till next year.
Yeah.
Like you, and I'm trying to get it where I can do it Monday, Tuesday, weekday gigs. I didn't quit the job full time, but I got it with Daniel. He gave me all these days. I'm like, yeah, this is great. He gave me all these Sundays and Mondays. So like, dude, they don't have full bands on these days. I was like, what?
Yeah, they don't do that.
Yeah, somebody messed up.
He was looking at last
Right
year's
now, I've got
calendar.
all
Yeah,
the
100%. Yes.
done.
Yeah. No.
I gotta figure it out.
Absolutely.
About the video sharing
Yeah.
to kind of sell yourself. As far as the audio goes, like, can it be like recorded on a phone?
I
Like, is it
recorded mine
offensive at
on
all?
my phone.
Okay.
I recorded it on my phone, and then I put it into, I used because I had a Pixel 2, I think, at the time, and I used the Pixel editing software, because you can edit your video over Pixel, and I like using Facebook Messenger for booking stuff, because it's easier to send video over Facebook Messenger than it is over text.
It is. Facebook Messenger makes it easier to send video and media.
Yeah.
'Cause I was trying to record from like an external microphone
Yeah.
to my phone,
Uh-huh.
and apparently this is across the board for Samsung. They don't do that.
No, they have proprietary technology that prevents other third-party devices from being used for that sort of thing. Nobody tells, Samsung doesn't tell anybody that.
I found a workaround, but I haven't tried it yet.
But phone audio is usually pretty good as long as you're not loud and it's not overdriving the little tiny condenser mic that's in there. You can pretty much record with a phone.
Oh,
Or-
I have an part of that. If you record it in a garage, let's say, do you think that would
Throw a
be
blanket up somewhere so you're not.
Always listen to it yourself too. Like if you're
Yes.
like, oh, these acoustics are kind of crappy, or I can hear the crowd more than me, don't send it. Yeah, like, and you can listen to yourself too and be like, okay, I can hear that well. Like, we don't care, or I don't like about the quality of anything except for like being able to hear your voice. It's okay if it doesn't look professional at
Yeah.
all. I just want to hear what it sounds like.
Yeah, and just to reiterate what you had said earlier about, sometimes if you're in a loud venue, that can override
Yeah.
the music almost entirely.
Absolutely.
But like what Stu said, maybe you don't want it to look completely empty either. So you might think about having like two kind of experiences. Here's what you can hear well, and here's what proves that I
Right.
have a good crowd going. And I just want to, once again, on that note, kind of say, like, use your open mic experiences to this end.
Yeah.
Go to the kind of quiet acoustic open mic and get some good audio. Go to the rowdy Bourbon Street Thursday night open mic and be like, look at this crowd.
Right.
You know what I mean? Have a diverse kind of little set of videos that you can send out. But I really just want, thanks for asking that question, because videos are the number one thing that I've been asked for in the past year.
Yeah.
Is do you have a video of you playing?
There are free video editing apps that you can get for your phone, like UCut and stuff like that, but they'll put a watermark on there. If you don't mind that, you can still use that. There are free video editing software for computer as well. Yeah, well, that's audio, but do they
that's
video?
video too.
They do video too.
I just learned.
Awesome, amazing, perfect.
Consider also, though, before you overthink it and go too far with the engineering of your video, that somebody else is probably watching it from their phone.
100%.
And so all of the
And that's
sound
why I took it on
engineering
my
you just
phone.
did to get there goes out the window anyway, because
Yeah.
I'm listening to it on my crappy
Right.
phone speakers. So
Yeah.
just something to think about.
So
Absolutely.
supplemental on that, I'm just curious, because I go over engineering on everything.
You're extra.
Yeah. Do you prefer to be able to hear the crowd interaction or for it to be completely clean audio? Because I can either do straight from the mixer or I can do crowd audio.
I like clean audio, but getting a visual of the crowd. Like, I like seeing the stage presence, what that vibe is, but I want to be able to hear your voice. There's a lot that we're on the cusp of, I don't know if you sound good or don't sound good, because I
Right.
can't hear it, and where I'm just kind of just like, okay, I'm moving on, yeah.
You need to be able to hear the product, but see that the product works.
Other questions?
I have a question. How do you discuss or review with camp merchandise and setting up the venue itself?
That's something that you should probably call ahead for. There have been venues that show up. I know.
I don't do that at all. I just set my table
She's
up.
a little bit of a rebel, but I've had bands show up to Bourbon Street and be like, "Hey, we want to occupy these 2 tables for merch." And no, that's money. You're not going to occupy 2 tables. You might be able to put a corner of it on stage, or occupy 1 small table just off stage. But
I mean,
you're
bring
not.
a table.
Yeah, bring your
I
own
think
table.
that's a great point, though. Like, if you're occupying a table at a restaurant or bar, you're occupying money for them.
Yeah.
So I just like to reiterate what you just said. Like, that's where somebody's sitting and eating $100 worth of dinner, and then again
A
and
few
again and again.
times,
So if
'cause you're there
taking
for
that
3
away from them,
hours.
that's a problem.
If you're entertaining for 3 hours, that's 2 or 3 dinner parties
I
or
have no
drinks.
problem with bands selling merch, and I like
Right.
it. And even solo ones, there's been some super
Y'all have
creative
so
stuff.
much room for activity.
We
You
do.
really do.
Yeah, we do,
Like,
yeah.
this
But
is
I
really
wouldn't let
apples and
somebody
oranges
take
here.
up a table space to do it like that, because that cuts into a server section. Like,
Right.
that's what I think about. Like, I have this many people scheduled for this many tables apiece. Like,
Right.
no, we're not doing that. But yeah, no, I mean, as long as you're open and polite about it, be like, hey, I have this stuff. Like, where can I put it? Even if it's a small venue, I guarantee you they'll make it work.
They will, yeah, and that's
I'm a fan
call ahead.
of tying a string behind you. Like if you have T-shirts, anything, hang examples and attach a QR code to a storefront So even if they can't get it from you directly, also I've been playing, and I haven't done merch for a long time, but you know, if I'm doing a solo gig and people want something, but I'm still playing when they leave, I'd miss out. So attach a QR code and to a storefront, and I knew that from working at Queensboro Shirt Company. You can have a storefront where they can scan your code, it takes you there, you can order the size you want, have the shirt made, and but you know, some people do like leaving shows with something. So
Yeah.
and the surf freaks actually they'll hang a bunch of tie-dyes behind them as their backdrop, and then at the end of the show people come up and they'll buy. But yeah, if you can attach a QR code and all of your available merch will be there.
Delia is a big proprietor of Linktree. If you have a Linktree, you can have one QR code for everything.
One QR
your
code to
website,
rule them all.
your Venmo, your Cash App, your
All your social
Redbubble,
media.
all of it.
It's a very clean landing site. And we're going to have a social media workshop in December. So look out for that. And we're going to talk about that, like what kind of things to use. I will just speak briefly about merch as well, because it's something that I've been doing lately. Absolutely bring your own table, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, do not anticipate that you are going to use a table of a venue, because again, you are taking money out of their pocket by doing so. Bring a table. I have 2 sized tables that I usually bring. One is the basic setup, the tip jar and the QR codes and stuff. I try to make my merch table as self-serve as possible. I've got the money bucket up there, and I've got several QR codes, Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal, that people can do, and everything's just sort of out. So what we've seen people do, and what the hope is that they don't even really have to talk to me at all. They come up, I have my t-shirts kind of already there with what sizes they are. I have pins, I have little bracelets, I have all sorts of stuff that kiddos love to grab at, and I'm like, oh no, here we go. Because usually the parents are like, no, and I'm like, why no? It's a wristband, they want it
Why
so
no,
bad.
it's just $1, Mom. Let them have
But
the
really, people
bracelet.
can kind of go up to the merch table, see I have a price list with the QR codes on it. Oh, pins are $5, this is $2. Boom, boom, I Venmo'd you that money, or I threw it in your jar. And it's been very self-serve, so it's cool.
And having your own table is just a good idea anyway, just because, I mean, it served us in more ways than one, having our own table.
We played at that Shuck and Shack Fresh and Raw tour, and it was packed out there in Carolina Beach for that, to the point where when we were done, we opened the day, there were no tables, and we had to order food, so I just went and got the table from the bar and set up shop, and then what the hell, and they brought the food out. But yeah, I think, you know, talking to the venue is a good idea. I don't know if this was part of your question, I don't find that venues expect like a cut of it.
Yeah, partly. Where does it draw line disrespect versus expectations?
I think that's a great question. Like, even at private parties and stuff that I book, and you know, we didn't really talk too much about that today. That could almost be its own workshop. I play weddings, I play private functions. I don't even put a tip jar out for stuff like that. You know what I mean? Because it's just a little distasteful. But you could ask, you know, is it okay? Sometimes I won't put stuff out, and people will be like, where's your information? I'm like, oh, well, I didn't want to put my Venmo out when this is a private party. You know, it just seems a little weird, but definitely just worth the ask. I have not encountered any venues in town that care that much about merch, again, unless you're like taking up their space,
Right.
or that expects some sort of cut from that. That seems shady. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. If they're like, no, we expect a percentage of that, why?
What? Why?
Yeah.
You didn't
But merch
purchase
has
this.
been a good way to just raise up the money a little bit for a lot of shows. So we are definitely going to plan a merch workshop itself and talk to some service providers and stuff like that. Steven has my favorite merch in town. You're going to be panelist for that. Yeah. Any other questions while we're...
Yeah.
When you're talking about having like fill-ins for your other projects, like, is it like 100% scuff, like whenever they come in, or is there like some sort of like rehearsal that you do beforehand?
Just totally by the seat of your pants.
Oh.
Yeah.
As a drummer, it's a lot easier because I don't have to worry about hitting a wrong note, and you know. But keeping the time.
Do they send you like a set list?
If
beforehand?
I'm lucky, yeah.
If he's lucky.
Yeah, but yeah, a lot of times it's literally 2 hours before. Sometimes I'll have advance notice, and you know it's. No, yeah. Usually I have no clue what we're playing. The hardest one was Eastbound because it's a country band.
Oh, Jason.
And I don't do a lot of country. And so after like 3 or 4 shows with them, I was like, I think I can get a set list. And yeah, because I didn't know it was going to keep
I
happening.
made some notes, but these are
It's like in my head, I was like, it's like disco. You just change the hi-hat instead of.
Stuart, you can don't be like weird about it. You are an excellent drummer, and like it is actually incredibly easy to screw stuff up as a drummer. So while you may not hit the wrong note, it's real easy to hit the snare drum at the wrong time and make everything bad.
Yeah.
So
and the breaks are the hardest thing.
Yes.
Like
It
So-
amazes me always whenever, because last minute fill-ins happen, like whenever I know that this person has no idea, like these people's set list, just watching how seamless it looks to like the crowd. No, it's crazy. It's cool to watch.
Yeah.
My
Lucas,
favorite is when it's an original band. That's actually how
Yeah.
it started with Dirty White Rags, because I'd never played with them, and my band was playing at the end of the night, and we had 5 bands playing that day, so I had the back line already set up, and they were like, "Hey, you mind playing drums with us? What do you play?" Originals. It's like, it's your funeral. But, yeah.
10 years later. you're
Right.
still with the
Right.
band,
Yeah,
so-
it worked out.
Lucas, how was it doing doing the spare parts gig with me and Dave and his friend from New York?
Yeah, so I got a call the day before. I had to make plans with my wife, and then we showed up at Bourbon Street, played songs that we played before.
Yeah.
And I just started playing in this town.
So,
I learned a lot. It was fun to learn.
but I mean, and he pulled it off. I mean, it's keep it simple for filling in. Keep it simple, stupid. If you play an instrument, look up the chord chart. No, I'm not above that. I do that stuff all the time. And be versatile and be willing to listen. And be willing to be quiet when you don't know things.
And that's true, though. I almost forgot that I can read music when, because I've never had to, but with Eastbound, it was like 60 songs, and I had like 3 or 4 days. And the last day, I'm sitting there listening. I was like, "Oh shit! I bet these are charted parts I can find." And was able to just read through and know where to count for the breaks. Like the
Exactly.
breaks was the hardest. Yeah, just don't overplay. And
That kind of made me think of other questions.
That's what this is for.
I've seen people with cell phones with like your lyrics and crap on it, but like, bro, what about like binders? Do people look down on the binders on stage?
So there's one musician that's very vocal. He doesn't want you to wear pants on stage, and but he was saying he doesn't want to see a notebook, like a music stand. Which to me, like for Boba Funk, I won't even write a set list. I look at the crowd. I try to gauge what I think they're into. If the funk's hitting, we keep it funk. If we do a reggae and they like that more, we'll stick to reggae. If they want Creedence, it's
They always want Creedence.
yeah. always
Everybody
work
wants
for
Creedence.
Yeah.
I didn't know Creedence songs until I moved to Wilmington.
But the only thing is that it takes away from your connect to the crowd. I think like if you're on the front, if you're fronting the show.
But it's like a reference to the
Some people can pull it off. There's an
Yeah.
art to it.
Yeah.
90% of people just are looking at it, aren't engaging
Yeah,
with the crowd
they
to
get
do
lost.
it. But there's some that, like, I love the ones that are just, like, deviate from, like, their normal stuff. And it's normally solos and duets that are like, hey, what do y'all want me to play? And even if it's something they have no idea with, like, they'll do that and just, like, still engage with the audience. And that is cool and it works. Whenever it is a crutch, that's whenever I don't like it.
I will say the king of that in my mind is Joey Alma. That man has forgotten more songs than I will ever know, and he'll pull up the lyrics real quick. Most of the stuff he plays is country, so it's like 4 chords and figure it out. But he'll be able to just pull it up and be like, okay, yeah, we're doing this. Yeah, sure. I played a show at the Lazy Pirate with him one time, and someone yelled out Shania Twain. And he was like, all right, we're doing whose bed has your boots been under? And I'm like, how? And he's like, it's a GCD thing, and throw this in the bridge. I'm like, okay. But he just did it, and it's amazing. But he had the chord chart up, and he was referencing it, but it's about staying connected.
I want to reiterate that. I think that's the main reason why there is judgment around the use of binders or the cell phone thing. I have mixed feelings about it. I remember friends came to see us, and I don't really have a set list either, but I have a list of songs I play, because much like the venues, I'm like, do I play songs? What
Which songs do I
I
know?
have a list in front of me, I'm like, and I do what Stu does, which is kind of like, okay, what's the crowd feeling? Oh, they're feeling that Creedence? All right, I got that. I got some Tom Petty for you. I got adjacent stuff. I see so many musicians here, and they're not engaging with their audience, and they're not putting on a good performance because they don't know the song. And so you can tell that there's not a connection to the song. Now, having said that, if you're open to requests, you might want to have that phone with you because you're not going to know the chords to everything. And if you are that type of person, some musicians are like, I'm not a jukebox. Like, I don't even take requests.
Yeah.
And some musicians love a challenge and are like, yeah, okay, yeah, we're doing Shania Twain. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go, girls.
I mean, 100%.
But so there, like Jenny said, I think there's an art to it of being able to have something there that's a reference. I love, Shawn and I both have the Hercules stand clips. They're so unintrusive. And we like ride them sort of
Yeah,
low,
we keep them
like
down.
here, so they're not like in front of our face. Even when I used to use a big old binder and a nice like music stand, I kind of sat it a little bit lower so it's not here. And especially not for nothing, but when people are taking pictures of you and you're here, or you're here in your binder, that's what it looks
I
like.
try to hide behind a cymbal. I have a face for radio.
You really do.
Yeah.
You have a.
Drummers always get sort of backgrounded though. Like,
No,
it's just
but
like,
he's a beautiful man, but he keeps the cymbals like right here at face level. I've noticed. That's why I go to the side and get pictures of you that way.
I
But I
don't get
will
a profile
say, and
pic of a fat man. It's got to be in the
We've told
front.
many friends that we think are like, you know, that we see at open mics and they're pretty good and we're like ready to book them at places and sort of refer them out. And we're like, go ahead and use the phone, like grab a binder, like there's no shame in the game. I think the question is, what's going to make the music sound better? You having that reference in front of you or not having it? Because that's kind of the thing. Does the reference in front of you make you suck into your phone and no longer engage with your audience, which is the whole reason why you're doing that thing? Or does it allow you the freedom to have that kind of security blanket and kind of reference things and not forget?
I love seeing whatever you're doing with your fingers.
Yeah.
And I hate when the binder and the paperwork is covering that, whether it be like this or whatever y'all do. But I really hate when I'm trying to either get a video or a CD and I can hear it, but I can't really see what's happening.
Yeah.
So
That's fair.
my
I will
It's
tell
our
you.
backing track. You'll know that we're not really playing if we don't.
Right. I will tell you. Every time I play "Come Together" by the Beatles, I pull up those lyrics because
You're like,
what
what
is
the
he
hell?
saying? He's saying nothing and everything at the same time. There are words, but does he know what they are? No. So I don't
Do
think it's.
you know what they are?
I don't,
know.
also know. I'm not gonna take the time to remember. Here come old flat top.
Football, that's all.
Right.
Right.
When they request
so-
Freebird, I hold the phone because if you get the lyrics just a little bit wrong before the solo, it will throw everything off.
Uh-huh.
So I literally hold the phone in one hand and sing. And then as soon as we get to the musical break, I'm like, thank God I'm done with that.
But also, if you can't demand the $100 surcharge for playing
Oh yeah,
Freebird,
Freebird ain't free.
Freebird ain't
Yeah.
Freebird. That's a
And
$100 charge.
I like the like everybody that wants to hear Freebird, write yes on the back of a 20. Everybody that doesn't want to hear Freebird, write no on the back of the 20. And whoever has the most will win.
That's great. I'm gonna use that next
Oh yeah,
time.
yeah.
So
That's
the
why we're here.
overwhelming thing is, as long as it isn't intrusive, and if you feel like you need it, do it. It's if you're the professional, you make the decision yourself.
I will say if you're, you know, in terms of what we were talking about before, like you're capturing video to send a venue, probably do a song you know.
Yeah.
Real well, that you know by heart, that you connect to, and that's clear. Because I have had people tell me more so than any kind of technical skill that they love my version of it or they love the emotion that I put behind a song. That's more important to people than your technicality. I don't know if it's like a Mozart quote or maybe it's Beethoven that was, you know, incorrect notes or whatever, but playing without passion is inexcusable. That's the more important part that people want to see, who are being entertained, and that venue owners want to see, is that you're connected to this somehow.
Yeah.
We're running over time. Are there any last questions? Go ahead.
Yes.
Quick one.
Yeah.
It's related to pay and it's related to 1099s versus.
Okay, yeah.
That
Stuart
could
can
be
answer
Demand
that.
cash.
No, I was saying that we need a whole panel just on
Yes.
that.
We could
Yes.
use a whole panel on the financials.
We really
The
should.
main question is how do you handle that with like a venue? Because like obviously there's
So-
limitations with 1099s and blah blah blah.
Right, so on paper right now, it looks like I made $30,000 at Ogden Tap Room last summer. I did not. I split that. Some of it is split with five bandmates. Some are with 3 bandmates. I had a lot of solo and duo gigs there this year, more than normal. But yeah, I live right behind there, so I get called. And so sometimes we will rotate who gets the check in their name, and then we just leave that
And
alone.
you all have to get a W-9 in that
Yes,
case
absolutely.
too.
Yeah.
Some
Which
shiesty stuff
would
happens with that.
I would love it if we could get individual checks, you know, but yeah, just get our 1099 from everybody. But so, and with Monkey Function this year, they want me to 1099 them because our guitarists they have a problem. And they keep buying guitars, and they want to be able to write them off. And like high-end shit like SGs and Les
You can
Pauls.
do that?
Yeah.
That doesn't
Dude,
equal
so I
more
was,
money.
when you were talking about playing for free, I was like, man, I've been doing the food truck rodeo for like 10 years, twice a year. Never once have I thought about writing that off.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, I'm sitting there like, oh shit, I better buy a new PA system I don't need. You know, like, just
Right.
and, you know, maybe if I use it, I use it. If I don't, I'll sell it in 2 years. You have to keep it 2 years, otherwise it's...
If you're in a band, please protect yourself too. Like, I have seen way too many people that the checks gotten written to, gotten completely screwed up. Other bandmates like, no, I'm not paying like my share of it. Like,
Oh, yeah.
do an LLC. Like, make sure it is all set in stone. Protect yourself with that, especially if you're the one that is getting the check written to. For sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
You know, I'm just curious if anybody else has ran into this anywhere or anything. It was only at one spot, but we were going to play, or we did play at Carolina Ale House, and they had started something new where they handed us an insurance form for us to sign off on that we have liability insurance with coverage up to $2 million. It's like,
Excuse
I'm
me?
not signing that.
No, I've always gotten cash there, and I've never
It
had
was
to...
a new thing, and it was like right before they stopped booking bands for this song. Like they decided no more live music at that, like pretty much right after that. So I don't know if anybody else actually.
Something
ran
had
into
to have
it.
happened.
I'm about to say somebody did something
You
wrong.
should always carry your.
Don't sign that.
No,
Right.
no.
I saw a post about I don't know if this was the same place, but some guy played a place, like it might have been a winery or something. The sprinklers came on.
Oh, yeah,
and
ruined his keyboard.
ruined his
I know
keyboard.
exactly what you're talking about. That was not a winery. That was a outdoor market.
Okay.
And somebody's child turned the sprinklers
Right.
on
Yeah,
on his equipment.
Yeah, the child just
He sure
turned on
did.
the spigot or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, you should have insurance on your instruments. I don't. But you should.
That could also be like its own
It could.
workshop. Just kind
Absolutely.
of talking about
Ultimately, the
protecting
venue
yourself.
is responsible if something happens at it, unless there's an act of God, like you could go through stuff if you wanted to. But you need to protect yourself too, because a lot of businesses, especially that are not chains or anything, don't carry huge policies, especially on like it. You can set it for different stuff, just like you can with healthcare, like where you can do a minimum or a maximum.
Yeah.
Like if you have, like I know some bands that have like 200 grand in equipment, like to where like if they played at a place with some insurance, I know some venues have, like it wouldn't cover it. So make sure you protect your equipment to yourself.
I have
as well.
some of my instruments and amplifiers on my insurance, and it's in particular it's the more expensive ones that I either use the most or that are worth the most. And because we live in hurricane town, if something happens, you're not gonna be able to replace that right away. So something to pad yourself, something to help yourself is important.
Is that just like standard like property insurance?
Yes.
And renters.
That
Uh-huh.
yes.
Right.
You can also buy musicians insurance.
Yes.
Oh, we're gonna have you on that panel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a good like workshop itself, sort of some financial.
I feel like that would be
literacy.
like the best way to do that is to have. I bet you do.
You have more spreadsheets, yes.
And
Joel,
make
did
sure
you have a question or something?
Yeah.
You looked like you were.
Yeah, well, I just want to thank all four of you guys for
Oh.
giving me your time.
Yes, thank you so
I'm
much.
really grateful about this community here. Like, after playing music in all these other towns, like, Wilmington is so special because of people like you. Just thinking about, the times with Jared and I met at Seawitch, having a good time, all over Diesel, but also, like, the times playing with you, the times you were hosting open mic and I came in and you were so welcoming to me. All of the things that you donate, your time to Delia and my businesses together. Milk, your food here.
He's back there somewhere.
He's everywhere.
I just wanted to share that real quick.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Joel. And since we're on the subject of this space and we're wrapping up, I do want to mention, of course, that this is an open studio space. You can talk to us. By us, I mean myself, Matthew back there, Milk, who I believe is emerging right on time, about what we are trying to do in this space, membership, things like this. We have talked about this as a rehearsal space for bands and musicians, so just to kind of throw that and put that on the table. So remember us, remember this space. We are doing more creative workshops. You can see the calendar right behind us. There are singer-songwriter showcases every month here on the third Thursday. If you want to get involved in something like that, please do stick around, talk to Matthew afterwards. There are poetry open mics, not for nothing, but I mean, I remember writing a lot of cringy poetry when I was in high school, and I might even drag some of that cringy poetry out one day for this space. But a lot of times musicians are not just musicians, we're creatives in general. Maybe we also paint, we also write, we also do whatever. I know that's the case for me, it's the case for a lot of us. So this is everything here. So there are showcases here, come check them out. There's poetry open mics here. Of course, we're continuing to do our creative workshops. I'm here most of the time on Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So come on in anytime, hang out, see the space, talk about membership, talk about what's going on. As we're sort of shuffling around and chatting with each other as we end, take a look at our cool board up here. You will find these. I've been kind of sneaking around and installing these around town and asking venues if they just want to keep them up. We brought one to Katie's when we played there the other night. We're like, can we just leave it? And I'm going around trying to maintenance them. So what you'll find up here, you know, we were talking a little bit about sober stuff and dry venues. Anna Mann is putting on this Hope concert series. This is a dry venue. Moxie comes out and does mocktails for it. We played with Crystal Bright a couple of weeks ago, which was really fun, and these are happening throughout November. So come take a look at the lineup over here. Come take a look at what's going on comedy-wise. All of the workshops that we're doing for the rest of the year are listed here, and the next one is up. So we did talk a little bit tonight about sound, and maybe we'll even add, since we've brought up this insurance stuff, just like a little bit about covering some of the equipment, because this is going to be a lot about what gear to get, gear recommendations from people in town who are either gigging solo or with bands, professional sound people who are getting paid every week to run sound, what their gear recommendations are, maintenance. We might have a cable wrapping off. See
That's going to start a war.
I know. Controversy. Wrap this cable up the right way. There's a QR code up here. These seats are open. We already reserved 3 of them today just from putting it on Facebook. We've got about 25 seats. As we take a look around, I just want to say thank y'all for coming out, because without all of you, it's just me kind of rambling to myself. And I would do that, but I appreciate being here instead. So come take a look at the board. Reserve your seat for the next workshop, which is going to be about sound and stage. The final one in December for this year is going to be about social media. And we're taking ideas for what we want next. We talked about some good ideas. We've come up with some good ideas in this one itself. So I definitely want to do merch, maybe a media panel, some sort of financial literacy, taxes and LLCs and stuff. I don't know enough about that, but we can find people. And if you're one of those people, or you know a friend who's really good at that stuff, send them my way. Feel free to get in touch with me. I emailed everybody from my voice and pen email. Please feel free to send me ideas, feedback, ideas for panels, because this is very much a community thing. More so than it's just like, we're panelists and we're experts and we're going to tell you what to do. Everybody in this room could be a panelist next week to speak on something that they know a lot about. So that's
we all learned something today.
Yeah. The friends we made along the way. That was the real payments. But thank you all for coming so much. If you have additional questions, we're just going to kind of mingle around as we're all getting out of here. Feel free to come and talk to our panelists. Feel free to talk to us, myself, Milk, and Matthew about what's going on in the painter and the poet space. Myself and TK are here also representing Voice and Pen. We're putting on showcases every single Wednesday except for these last ones, which is this resource. Thank you for going up to the mailing list. There's a mailing list over here for Painter and the Poet. So there's lots of things to do before you leave for the night. Thank you all so much for coming out and hanging out with us.